So good afternoon, colleagues, our listening audience. Thank you for joining us today for our April 28th school board meeting. And at this time, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance, and today's honors will go to Miss Linda Cuthbert, our Vice Chair lady.
Good afternoon, everyone. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Cuthbert. I'd like to introduce my colleagues. I have Mr. Carl Persis representing District 4, Mr. Ruben Colon representing District 5, our school board attorney, Mr. Ted Doran, our agency clerk, Mrs. Erin Lieben, District number 1 represented by Mrs. Jamie Haynes, my vice chairman, Mrs. Linda Cuthbert representing District 3, our superintendent, Dr. Scott Fritz, and I'm Ida Wright, representing District 4, representing District 2, and your chairperson for this year. We want to take this time just to say thank you. We hope that everyone is safe, enjoying your family, and our prayers are with each of you. So at this time, we'll move on to our agenda. Items for approval on this agenda is items number 4.02, 16.01 through 16.03. We're going to district vision statement. At this time, I will open up the floor for my colleagues. We normally allow each of you, if you have something you would like to share at this time, to do so. And I'll start with you, Mrs. Cuthbert.
Good afternoon, everyone. Madam Chair, I just want to make a comment about our seniors who've been so patient over the last couple of months, who have, I guess, lost their social connections with their friends, probably the time they want to celebrate the most, signing their yearbooks, banquets, celebrations, award ceremonies, concerts, prom. Honors Night is coming up. May will be celebrated as much as possible. I just want to say how proud I am of our senior class who has weathered this storm right along with us. If anyone needs to be, I guess, celebrated, it's them. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cuthbert. Next, Mr. Carl Persis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I would just like to once again just shout out some accolades to all of our teaching staff out there. I know next week coming up is Teacher Appreciation Week, and we'll be doing lots of things, and I hope that businesses around our county will perhaps be putting some signs on their message boards thanking our teachers. I just continue to get nice emails and comments, as we all do, about the super job that they're doing. I know it's difficult, and particularly difficult for those teachers who are parents too. So they have their own children to be concerned with and assist, and then they have their students in their classes to keep them engaged and to answer the questions that students have and the students' parents have. So it's a lot, and I just want to say again, as I know we all do, we all appreciate the wonderful job that they're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Persis. Ms. Jamie Haynes.
Hi, I'd like to first give a shout out to Mrs. Stacy Tremont, who set up the Facebook page for the class of 2020, which are our high school seniors, called Adopt a Volusia County 2020 Senior. I admire her creativity to set up that page, and I am just so impressed by all of the community that has rallied around our seniors and adopted one or more seniors to just show them how happy they are that they're a senior. But the biggest piece for me on that page is just reading the stories about the things that our seniors have accomplished, things that they have lived through to get to this point. And I so appreciate that she had the insight to set up that page and share it with the world. So anyone listening, if you have not seen this page yet, I would encourage you to go to Facebook and look for Adopt a Volusia County 2020 Senior and choose someone to adopt and show them some form of kindness. I too would like to thank all of our teachers and staff out there that every day are connecting with their students and making a difference in the lives of their kids through that connection. And once again, another shout out to our Schoolway Cafe, our transportation and warehouse, because we're feeding a lot of children at this time, and that's a wonderful thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Mr. Cologne?
So I won't echo, but I will echo the sentiments of all my counterparts and what they just shared. Again, we are eternally grateful to those who have helped our families during this time, a time that has really shown the true value of our teachers, staff, Schoolway Cafe, and all our teams. I will share a quick story that I shared with my peers about one family who actually has found light in that their child is doing much better with the online platform. And so that is a testament to our teachers and how they are not just throwing our kids onto some program or some computer, but they're actually following up and spending the time with our children that otherwise would be shared with a whole lot of other kids. So again, just to echo the sentiments of everyone else, and I am so proud of everyone and grateful of all the work everyone is doing for our families.
Thank you, Mr. Cologne. I too will just say ditto. And I ended with the word aspire last session, and I'm going to begin with that. You aspire, we aspire each other. And so as you aspire us, and we try to have policies and procedures in place where you can inspire your children, we then inspire our entire community. So just thank each of you. I'd like to thank my colleagues, as well as the superintendent and all of his staff, for all the hours that you have dealt with me and put up with me and Dr. Fritz and the phone calls. We've probably talked much more in the last month and a half than we did in a year. So I want to thank each of you. And again, I want to thank Dr. Fritz and his team and echo my sentiments for the entire Volusia County schools district team, friends, and families for all that you have endured and helped us as we work through this COVID-19 pandemic and finding some new grounds, into our school board attorney, Mr. Ted Doran, who's helped us navigate some of this as well. So thank all of you. Moving on to items 2.01, I will entertain a motion to accept our agenda.
There is one change, Madam Chair. We had to add 6.03, the application to the community-oriented policing services. We added it as soon as we got it, but this is a grant application and the deadline is fast approaching. So we did add 603.
Okay, Madam Chair, then I move that we adopt our agenda as amended.
Second. Second that.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure we can hear you.
Thank you. The motion was approved. I had it on mute. I'm sorry. Thank you. The motion was approved by Mrs. Cuthbert, second by Mr. Cologne. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Haynes?
Yes.
Ms. Cuthbert?
Yes.
Mr. Persis?
Yes.
And Mr. Cologne?
Yes.
And Ida, yes. Thank you. So this has been approved by unanimous vote. There's one, we will have minutes from last meeting and this meeting at our next meeting. We don't have them available today, but we will have the minutes from the last two meetings plus this one at our next meeting. Moving to 3.01, this is public participation for any item on the consent agenda. We will have a 5 p.m. for items of general interest pertaining to the public. If Do we have anyone wanting to speak on the consent agenda, Kelly? Mrs.
We
Schultz?
do not.
Thank you.
Not at this time.
Thank you. Moving on to item 4.01. Superintendent Fritz, do we have any items that we need to remove from the consent agenda? Did anyone contact you?
No, ma'am.
Colleagues, is there anything on the consent agenda you would like to be removed from the consent agenda?
No.
Nope.
Okay, we'll move to 4.02. Entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as printed.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. The motion has been moved by Mr. Carl Persis, second by Mr. Ruben Colon. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll start Mr. Ruben Colon,
Yes. Yay.
Jamie Haynes,
Yes.
Carl Persis,
Yay.
Linda Cuthbert,
Yes,
Ida Wright, yay. The motion has passed unanimously. I just want to take a time just to reflect on a couple of the resolutions. We had Resolution 2020 recognizing May 4th through the 8th as National Teacher Appreciation Week. And Mr. Persis, you alluded to that. We do want to tell our teachers thank you. We started this year out with the hurricane, and we're ending this year with the pandemic. And so I hope that we'll never see anything like this in life again. But I do have to commend all of the teachers and everyone for just being troopers. This has truly been an extraordinary year, and all we can do is say thank you. Thank you for all that you do. Any comments? I'd like to open it up to my colleagues if you would like to make any comments on that.
yes, I would. I would if I could. Teacher Appreciation Week is always the most exciting. The little gifts, students and parents are always complimentary, and it's always nice to see what each school campus does for the teachers. Either it's a luncheon or some kind of notoriety, um, and I hope that continues. For next week, that campuses recognize the hard work, and not just our teachers, but our paras and our coaches, the TOAs. They're all so very important. We cannot work. Our students cannot do any of this without them. They are definitely the wheel. Without the wheel, we would have nothing in civilization. And you could always tell when the West was settled because there were curtains on the windows and there was a teacher in a classroom. So I just want to say, words can't even say enough to say thank you. But you know what? Much like a bus driver, a fireman, a nurse, a doctor, a policeman, when the chips get down, they always rise to the top. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? We also want to acknowledge Resolution 2021 recognizing May 6th through the 12th as a National School Nurse Week. They too have had an interesting year. And Resolution 2022 recognizing May 20, 2020 as Children Mental Health Awareness Day. So we just want to tell each of the authors and the sponsors of these resolutions that we're very grateful, and all of these are so important for my nurses down to our children and their mental health awareness day. I'm sure, again, just like our teachers, our children, from the beginning of the year, from a hurricane to ending this year as a pandemic, and like Linda, the vice chairman, said, to our graduating seniors, this has truly been a year to remember. Moving on to items 13.01, Superintendent Fritz.
Yes, I actually have 3 announcements today. The first one is about our next virtual board meeting, which will be at 3:30 on May 12th, 2020, in 2 weeks. Just the same format that we're doing today. And I would like Aaron to pull up the ICP slides for me. I'd like to give a little update on where we're at. We gave 2 weeks ago when we were ending phase 1, and would like to give a little update on where we're at with phase 2. That's perfect right there, Aaron. Thank you. No one could have anticipated that we would be ending this school year with a pandemic that has changed our way of learning to a distance learning venue. I'd really like to thank all of our teachers, our parents, our students, our principals, the district staff for being committed to making sure that learning continues and our students are engaged. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. That's why we're gauging success all along the way and asking for feedback from all of our stakeholder groups. We actually received more than 12,000 responses on our first survey. And we heard a lot of things. One of the things we heard about was continue the communication. Please keep communicating with us. Consider that done. We're doing it. We're trying to communicate on our website. If you go to our website, it's inundated with opportunities for us to communicate to the public. We are having our principals do messengers home. We're making sure that we're doing videos. We're trying to keep that alive and well. And I'll share with you, as we transitioned from phase 1 to phase 2, we learned a lot. And we learned that we needed to make Canvas more user-friendly. We ceased the uploading of documents. We worked with our families. Some numbers on this screen, Aaron, if you'd progress one more. Some numbers on this screen kind of dictate and tell you exactly how our students have been engaged with Canvas. Our K-5 students have logged more than 608,000 hours into Canvas. And that's very commendable. And that's about 86% of our students. The rest are using paper packets, but an 86% for coming out of the box is certainly commendable. And as we continue to prepare ourselves for future situations where we may have to have a continuity plan, we will try to increase that number exponentially so that we can get all of our students with distance learning technology. And if you look at the ingenuity piece for our 6-12, over 806,000 hours logged in for our 6th to 12th graders, which is about an 87% engagement. Aaron, if you could move to the next slide. And I'm so glad Ms. Cuthbert mentioned seniors. I think all of our heart goes out to them. And I'd like to share a little bit with the group what we did. As a superintendent, I met myself and the SGA students. And we had a conversation about a month ago about what graduation should look like. And then we met with the principals, the high school principals. Dr. Barrio and I met with them, and we asked them to go back and talk to more students so that we could kind of have an understanding of what they wanted. And there were some really unique ideas that were pitched by the kids, but overall, there was an overwhelming response that they want that traditional type of experience that their older siblings went through, that their parents went through. And so we were able to arrange for a delayed graduation that would be very traditional at the Ocean Center. What you see in front of you are the rehearsal dates and times, as well as the graduation dates and times. We actually have until May 11th to stick with our May dates. So these are backup dates. And so for some reason, if CDC requirements were relaxed, then we could stick with our original May graduation dates. This is our backup plan. Our backup plan is the week of July 6th. So listening to our students, we wanted to make sure that we were able to honor their request. Aaron? And as Ms. Haynes pointed out, hats off to our food service crew and our bus drivers that are making sure our families are staying fed. We have delivered over almost 600,000 meals since this pandemic started, and we will continue. And Aaron? And really, that is the update. I just wanted to say how proud I am of our teachers and our families for working really hard during this phase 2. Phase 2 will continue through May 29th. We'll stay the course on this. At the next board meeting, we'll be giving updates on what the summer program would look like. And so any questions you have of me, I'd certainly be willing to entertain those at this time.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Fritz. I'll start with Mr. Cologne. Any questions?
I have no questions related to this. I know earlier in the week when I did the press meeting for Deltona, there was mention of us advancing some of our summer projects. Can you speak to what I mean, because we arguably have no kids in the schools and no folks in the school. Are we painting? What kind of work are we doing advancing that? That just came to mind. I'm sorry I hadn't asked you.
No, that's okay. Yes, we are actively trying to get our teams into the schools to start that process. We've started working with teachers to voluntarily come to our school sites so that they can collect their materials. It's not mandatory. We were very clear about that. I sent a communication out to teachers yesterday stating that, should they not want to travel because of this pandemic, that they can wait till post-planning and that their administration would work with them. But yes, the rooms that are ready and available, we have started that work.
Great.
Anything else, Mr. Cologne?
Nope, that was it. Again, kudos to our teams, everyone, teachers, staff. I mean, we're talking about almost 1 million meals. That's amazing.
Yep.
And our families are grateful.
Yep. Thank you. Ms. Haynes?
Yes. So to piggyback off what Mr. Cologne was asking, Dr. Fritz. So I heard that it's voluntary now for teachers to come in to, pack up their personal items or whatever. And so in the rooms where they don't choose at this time to go in, are you saying that during post-planning they will go in? Because I am concerned because we've asked a lot of the custodial group and the maintenance group to go ahead and, get our rooms thoroughly cleaned, the floors stripped and waxed, painting done, whatever has to be done. And so, our principal's then just going to have to communicate that those rooms are not ready to be cleaned. And if so, is post-planning optional that they come and get their room ready, or?
Yes, post planning is optional. Right now, we're still under a minimal movement around our county, and so we did not want to take some of our employees, and we do have teachers and paras that are over the age of 65 and have some health impairment. So we didn't want to require them to come at this time to collect their materials so that we could start some of those summer cleanings. Many of them have volunteered to do that, though. I'll share with you, many of our teachers have volunteered to come in, but we wanted to err on the side of our teachers so that we didn't force that issue. We've asked staff not to touch other teachers' materials. We knew that was an issue in some of the schools early on, and we've asked them not to do that. We've asked to leave personal items alone until the owner actually packages them up. But areas that we can start cleaning, we have. Mr. Aiken can certainly give a more detailed update, but we've worked with ABM to start some of that summer cleaning on areas and common areas where we can really start to make a difference.
Okay, thank you. So you said the post-planning is still optional, so it
Yes.
may even be after that before they go in and.
Well, we'll follow the CDC guidelines and we'll see. If CDC says by the time we get to post-planning that, we should be all clear, then we would ask for their assistance to come in then so that we could get started.
And I do want to say thank you to all of, teachers and staff that have already gone in and done this, because I've seen a lot of positive posts on Facebook since this pandemic started. Early on, there were some teachers that went in and packaged up student stuff and delivered it to their homes without anyone asking them to, but they posted that, and I've seen quite a few posts lately where teachers have been going in and preparing their rooms so that they can be cleaned and summer work can be done. So thank you to that group.
Mr. Persis?
Madam Chair, I don't have any questions. Just want to thank everyone.
Okay. Ms. Cuthbert?
Yes, one thing that occurred to me that maybe I should have asked earlier, as one retires, teachers, there are quite a few teachers retiring this year. To walk off the campus, to have your colleagues, your peers celebrate your years of service. Is there any way, are there any options open to faculties to celebrate the retirement? Because I know our retirement dinner, the way we honor our retirees is probably not going to happen. Is the district planning anything, or are we just kind of leaving it up to the school campuses?
Well, I think that retirement time is very special. That's one of those things that I'd almost want to delay so that we could do it properly as a district. And we are leaving that up into individual school campuses, what they do for those individual teachers. But regarding our district celebration, that's one that I would recommend that we wait until we can do it in person.
Okay, sir, thank you. And one other, since I have seniors in the family, and their number one question is how many people can they invite to the ceremony? And they were wondering what kind of audience is going to be present, because parents, grandparents, I mean, I know I have a seat already, but there are a lot of family members who now will plan to either take off or arrive in July. So is there any news about who gets to be invited?
No, I mean, this is a generic answer, but we're still going to have to follow the CDC guidelines. If social distancing in July is what it is now, then it could just be the students and maybe one or two guests. But we will follow those CDC guidelines as we get closer. That's why I think that the July dates are so important, because I don't think we're going to be ready to be able to do a proper ceremony in May.
Okay, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll wait the announcements.
Yes, ma'am. We'll get them out as soon as we get them, I promise.
Thank you.
Um, Superintendent Fritz, they brought up a good question that I just want to go back. So I want to make sure that we understand. So right now it is voluntary to clean the office, and post planning is voluntary as it relates to cleaning their office, correct?
Post planning will go with the CDC guidelines. If they say that it's open and staff should come pick things up, then that's what we'll follow. But right now, up until post planning or until the CDC guidelines change, it is strictly voluntary.
No, and so I want to make sure I'm clear. I'm saying, regardless if they relax the CDC or not, post planning will take place even if it's virtual.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Because I'm hoping if it's virtual that we'll take that time to really use that for training for teachers for virtual learning. I just want to make sure that we're not eliminating post planning.
We are not eliminating post planning.
Okay. And so are the administrators then, will they be allowed, since they're on campus, if they so choose, to pack up offices? Again, we don't want any, it goes both ways. I don't want ABM, because we ride them pretty bad, to be then held accountable for something that they had no control over, because a teacher may not want to come back until August to move her stuff. I'm just using that, and we just got to think realistically. So if they are not required, then will administrators be required? I will volunteer to go help pack up someone's office, but we cannot then turn around to try to hold ABM responsible for those offices if people not pack their offices. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I would want our principals to be the point of contact to determine what comfort level the person that owns the property is with them packing it up.
Okay.
I'd want them to certainly have that. One of the complaints that I got this last week was I really don't want someone touching my personal items. That's that person's viewpoint, and we'll, as long as we can make an arrangement for them to come get their own personal items, then so be it. Common areas, though, I think administrators can help out with. Office areas that are common for cleaning, conference rooms, things like.
But I don't think they can then hold us hostage to say somebody else can't. I just don't.
I think there's a time on this too. I mean, right now we're dealing with May 29th. If we went beyond May 29th, we may have to change our standards. What we've said is up to May 29th.
Okay.
And so if we get beyond May 29th, we're headed in June, and someone's still refusing to clean out their classrooms, then we would have to take action upon that. But if that's not right now, that's not the case. So right now we're
saying that. I'm just saying post planning. If we can't have post planning and that's virtual, and we still can't have people clean their office, and that's what I'm talking about, the post planning period, then I think we will have to make a decision on how we get those offices cleared so that the people that we're contracted with can do their jobs as well.
Gotcha.
Mrs. Wright.
Yes.
This is Miss Haynes. I'd like to piggyback on that for a moment too, because what about, so I understand it's voluntary for teachers, Dr. Fritz, but what if, you know, what about the student stuff in their rooms? Can the student stuff in their classrooms go ahead and be packed up for parents to pick up? Because I don't want to see parents having to make multiple trips up to the school because they can say they have 4 children and two of them they can come pick up and two of them they can't. So, in limiting this to say, you know, we won't pack up teachers' personal items, is that also limiting the student materials in those rooms or the students' personal belongings being packed up?
I think if a parent wanted to come collect their belongings, I think we would make arrangements for them to do that. You know, that way they're picking up their own belongings and touching their child's own belongings. I think that would be the best approach.
So does that mean then we'll have parents going into classrooms to pack?
You know, if you're asking me my opinion, that's what I would prefer. I would prefer them go to campus and get their students' materials rather than us transport their student materials up to them. I'd rather them just go into the classroom, get what it is they think they need, empty their locker, um, and do it themselves.
Okay, so I was not talking about transporting it to them. I was just talking about, you know, if I were a parent and I had 3 or 4 children and, you know, I said I want to come pick it up and two of my children's materials were already packed, say in bags with their names on them, and one was not. Just to limit the number of trips I'd have to make. I just wondered if I'd be able to get the materials from the third child at the same time.
I would think so. I mean, I think it's a slippery slope that we're walking on this because if you if we lose materials or we have someone in the room and something breaks, I think that's a potential problem. I would rather children just get their own with their families. We can arrange for opportunity for our schools to be able to do that. We have people at our schools all the time now, Monday through Thursday. I don't think there's been an administrator yet that's told parents not to come in and get the materials. I know that some of them have had parents come up and clean out their lockers. Um, but I also know that we've had a few incidents where people have gone in the room trying to pack things up and things were thrown in garbage cans, and then they were thrown in garbage bags, thinking they were collecting, and then those items, personal items, ended up in the dumpster. And so that's the double-edged sword about us doing the packing for them, is we may end up throwing away their personal items. Um, I think there's a right way to do this. It's almost like you have a end of the school year, and you know we can have parents between now and May 29th go up to the site and get their items. But we just kind of have to think through that a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Superintendent Fritz. Anything you wanted to add, Superintendent Fritz?
No, you know, this is just one of those areas that we're just going to have to kind of continue to think through.
Okay. It's not 5 o'clock yet. Okay, so we'll come back to item 1401.
Actually, I still have my part two, which is the
Oh, sorry.
organizational chart. That's okay. Um, Aaron, if you would put up the superintendent's cover page, thank you. Um, board members, I wanted to be able to present to you my cabinet on the org chart for the coming 2021 school year. We will also go through the teaching and learning phase one org charts that I sent to you earlier, but wanted to share this with you. If you look at the superintendent's cover page includes all individuals that are either division leads and they are on the cabinet, or they supervise or support schools that are also on my cabinet, such as the assistant superintendents for elementary, middle, high, and student services. And so this is the cabinet going forward, 2021. It looks very similar to other districts our size. But there are some differences, and I'll explain that to you as we go through the teaching and learning cabinet. I'm sorry, org chart. Aaron, if you put up the deputy cover page. So this is the deputy superintendent's org chart, and you'll notice that those assistant superintendents for elementary, middle, and high and student services are on this org chart, even though that I'm their evaluator. Dr. Balgobin, as the deputy superintendent, will have uh, serve as my designee for the day-to-day operations for teaching and learning. So she'll be working with these 4 assistant superintendents, helping them make decisions, moving our work forward. But all cabinet members, again, are evaluated by the superintendent. That's why they're on cabinet. So Dr. Balgobin will work daily with the assistant superintendents because some of the initiatives are not focused on just a level. They're really K-12. They'll also report to the deputy superintendent. So you see that ESE is on that page. Federal programs is on that page. Research, evaluation, and assessments on that page. Professional learning is on that page. ESOL is on that page, and charter and choice are on that page because they are truly K-12 focused. Aaron, if you'd move to the next slide. This is our assistant superintendent for elementary, and you can see that all the schools are listed on the side. This position will be led by Ms. Clayton, and you can see that she has 2 directors, a director for transformation and a elementary director, and that's due to the number of schools that we have. We have 45 elementary schools. That transformation director and coordinator will work with our tier 3 and our lower tier 2 schools. Both directors will work with schools and support them with professional learning, unit plans, and push-in supports. But all principals will be evaluated by Ms. Clayton. We also intend to meet our students early in the VPK world. We know that children that attend VPK programs are much more successful when they enter our system. As a district, we need to look at meeting their needs in our community. We moved this department from federal programs to the elementary department for more direct connection with our primary mission of educating students. Aaron, if you proceed to middle. I'm so elated to have a veteran middle school principal lead this. Ms. Core will be our assistant superintendent for middle school, and she'll be leading with her director, Mr. Paul, who's new to us. He's actually been in the organization, but he's new in this role. And they will support the acceleration process as we prepare students for post-secondary life. And Aaron, if we go to high school. Dr. Barrio will be leading this charge, and he'll pick up Ms. Core's kids when they're ready to go to high school. And we have to start changing the conversation with our incoming 9th graders. It's no longer, this is what you need to graduate. It's what do you want from your experience at the high school for the next 4 years. Let's start looking at areas of interest for you so that you can achieve your dreams. You'll notice that there's a focus on college and career as well as CTE in the high school department. These 2 areas will touch 100% of our students. We'll strive to make sure that all students walking across our stage either attend a traditional college or university, attend a post-secondary school to earn a certification to prepare them for a career, have them proudly serve in our military, or the 4th option is to go to work in our community. Other areas on this chart include electives and athletics because they're extremely important to high schools. Aaron, if we'll go for the last slide. And this is our new department, which will be led by Rose Rowland. This is our student service department. In this department, we'll tackle the social emotional education that's so critical to each and every student. Ms. Rowland and her team will focus on ensuring that every school has a caring learning environment with embedded-based research practices such as restorative justice, PBIS, Leader in Me, to help minimize some of those student discipline issues. Likewise, this department will help lead the work to ensure that we have a code of conduct that is consistent across our school district. Board members, we were able to reorganize the teaching and learning department to better meet the needs of our school-based leaders. From the feedback that I heard from our principals and our teachers in our focus group, this is the model that they wanted. In doing so, we've been able to have 28 highly qualified individuals return to the school sites to work directly with our children. This streamlined approach comes at a significant savings to the school district and ensures a more direct connection to our schools. We will continue with the other divisions and present that reorganization to this board in June. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Superintendent Fritz. I'll start with you, Mr. Persis. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes.
Dr. Fritz, I appreciate what you went through here. My concern still is this. This is the same level or layers that were provided to us earlier on, and I'm still looking for what it looks like once we go below this. And even though the cost savings piece has been shared, I'm still looking for where we added and deleted and what a true cost savings looks like. And I think at this point in time, I'm really looking for that cost savings in general funds, since we're not sure what's going to happen um, financially, coming out of the state level for what we're looking at next year. But thank you for what you have provided.
And I will share those general savings funds. I think I shared those a little bit with you, but the general savings funds are about $1.3 million. And we deleted 28 positions from the district office for some of those savings, and the federal savings were over 400,000.
Okay, so actually in my notes, I had those numbers reversed. I had that the 400,000 was general and the 1.3 million was federal. So possibly that's where I'm at.
I sent something on Friday with the changes, and we were able to streamline and use some more federal dollars to adjust some of those positions. So that's why we were able to get more savings in general. We did do a second look after the March 7th the original binder that I gave the board, and we were able to streamline those dollars again to readjust to more federal spending as opposed to the general funding.
Thank you. So at what point will we get the next layers of this reorganization chart? And when we receive that, can it be noted, and it could even be noted on this part where positions are new, or where they remain the same, and then maybe like a final page of which ones were deleted? I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Mr. Cologne?
I have nothing. I agree with Ms. Haynes. One of the challenges that we always had was asking for that org chart to see under these layers how many folks were there, and to this day I've never seen it. So I'll echo what Jamie said, and I think that's something we can work on, just to understand when folks say the district, we coming onto the board as a new person, and I'll use that as long as I can. People always said the district is top heavy, the district is top heavy. And I could never really tell you what top heavy looked like, because there was never really, here's federal programs, here's the coordinator, under that coordinator, there's two folks who handle, let's say, homelessness and something else. And, there was never that. So I think that, having that level of transparency, and mind you, we're going to find areas where, hey, maybe we shouldn't have cut, maybe we could need to add someone back, but at least having a transparent idea of that as we talk about the cost savings. So that would be beneficial for me, but that's just echoing what Ms. Haynes said.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Cuthbert.
Dr. Fritz, will you be having a page in there somewhere? What is, for example, what's under Mr. Aiken, Chief of Operations? For example, he has facilities under him, transportation, school guardians, I think, safety and security. So it would be nice, those very essential but smaller departments, I'd like to know where they go. And also, where is personnel? With HR, is that where the insurance department is?
No.
So
all of those org charts will be available to you in June.
Okay.
They'll take the same format that we've got here with the teaching and learning piece. But to answer your question, the risk and benefits is with finance and the personnel piece. The personnel piece is actually with HR, but the risk and benefits insurance piece is with finance.
Yeah, so we know they exist, but we don't know where they are in your reorganization. And also, when you put all this out, you'll have a neutral schematic. But could you also tell us who people are? I mean, the names like Renee Clayton, for example, is newer to our district. I'd like to be able to remember her name and be able to spell it correctly. So it would be nice to have that listed and have her exact title, for reference for people to know. So it'd be nice to have a, I guess, a universal idea of the chart, but also one that has who our people are.
Sure.
If that would be helpful, that would probably be very helpful for all of us.
No
So
problem.
thank you. Yes, otherwise, I'm very much for this organization because it does make so much sense, so much sense. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to have the expertise in all the areas. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Cuthbert.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I do have a question. I got a couple of questions, but I think we can talk a little. But I want to go back to the PowerPoint because one question, and most of them surround, go back to the deputy superintendents for me. Aaron. No. Nope. Go to elementary and middle. Okay, so when we look at middle school, I see we have the science coordinator. If we go to high school, we have the math coordinator, CTE electives. Okay, and now go back to elementary for me.
You have the ELA coordinator
Yes.
on that one.
So now my question, why aren't the three of them really either probably going to Dr. B? Why do we have them segmented if they're K-12?
Because as we look at this, they will work with all K-12, but this is for the purpose of the evaluation. The three assistant superintendents will work together to evaluate the ELA, the math, and the science coordinators. They will work, they will make sure that they're working in tandem. That K-12 coordinator will have a team of folks at the elementary, middle, and high that they'll be working with. But this is really for the purpose of an evaluation. You can only have one person complete the evaluation. So for the elementary assistant superintendent will complete the evaluation for the ELA coordinator from input from Dr. Barrio and Ms. Core. But they will work with all of them. And part of the reason why I didn't have them report to Dr. Balgobin is she already has a fairly large org chart, and that these people will be most likely working with these assistant superintendents and those program specialists and coaches in those houses directly. And I didn't want to have another filter that they had to go through to get the work done.
Okay. We'll meet because this is my background, and some of this for me is just, it's not flowing. And so it may just be me. So I don't want to belabor our meeting. We'll talk offline about that. If you don't mind, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions, colleagues?
Yes, I have one more. Where is professional development?
Professional development is under Dr. Balgobin. For the teachers, leadership development is under Mr. West for the principal. So Brandy Hogue and the principal pipeline are under Mr. West, but the leadership, the teacher professional learning is under Dr. Balgobin.
Okay, so who will be in charge of professional development for our teachers? Will it be a coordinator or Dr. Balgobin?
Yeah, it's a coordinator that reports to Dr. Balgobin.
Okay, so the coordinators in each of the three levels.
That coordinator for professional learning report to Dr. Balgobin. The ELA, math, and science are working K-12, but being evaluated by one level. So the ELA coordinator is being evaluated by the elementary assistant superintendent, math by the high school, and science by the middle school, even though they'll be working with all three levels.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Wright, I have one more question.
Go ahead, Ms. Haynes.
So, Dr. Fritz, looking at the elementary slide, and Aaron, you don't have to pull it back up. If I heard correctly, you said that Dr. Clayton will be evaluating, for example, the reading. And so when I look at that chart, does that mean that Dr. Clayton is evaluating everybody on that chart? The director of school improvement and transformation, the coordinator of school improvement and transformation, the elementary director, the early learning coordinator, the ELA K-12 coordinator, and the principals?
Yes.
Is she, so she's got 45 or 46 elementary principals and all of these people. So no one else on this chart. So like directors are not evaluating the people under them. It's all under Dr. Clayton.
They are going to give guidance and direction, but I wanted an assistant superintendent, and I heard that loud and clear from the principals as well as other folks,
Right.
that the assistant superintendent would be the final evaluation of a principal. However, they will get guidance from those directors. Those directors will help along the way.
So when we see the next layers under this, for example, you stated that like the coordinators for the subject areas will have teams under them. Is that also going back, for example, onto Dr. Clayton's plate, that she'll be evaluating the teams?
She'll only evaluate the teams for elementary.
So she'll evaluate the teachers on assignment and the resource teachers and all that also?
Well, her directors will probably do that. I mean, they can help. They can help with that.
Okay.
But they'll only do the elementary personnel.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Dr. Fritz, back to you.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you so much. It is 4:22, so we'll move on to 15.01. Mr. West?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. I apologize. I had to find my screen. I had it hidden there. So good afternoon, Ms. Wright, board members, Dr. Fritz. Thank you very much for having me today. I think I've given you the HR update there, what we had going on, particularly this week. We were very excited. We had our hiring fair this past week. And as you can see, we had 228 that actually signed up for that and participated virtually. All of our principals participated in that, and I'd like to say thank you very much to those principals and the schools for doing that. We got a lot of very good input from our principals and also from the applicants as well. Ms. McKinney just did a lion's share work to get that set up, and so I want to give a big shout out to her as well. As you can see, we've actually received 92 recommendations from hire from that job fair. And that was tremendous, particularly considering the fact that, we were able to actually find out what the vacancies were prior to that job fair and have those available so that the principals could hire those teachers right into those positions. And I think that you see that we actually had our display staff that was actually placed. We've actually gotten that down to 2 people now that aren't in their actual final resting places yet, but we're still working on that as well. And we do have 145 instructional vacancies right now, but we're working on those to get them filled. So just want to say thank you to everybody for the work that all kind of came together for this past week.
Aaron, is it possible that you can go back to that and scroll down? We weren't able to see the very bottom of the file. Okay, that was the bottom. Oh, okay. No, I thought something was after the 92. Okay, thank you. Colleagues, do you have any questions starting with you, Mr. Persis?
Can you put that slide back up again, Madam Chair? Yeah. And so where it's, thank you, Mr. West. Excellent job, by the way. So the total instructional vacancies, the 145, is that how many we have now after the 92 were recommended? We still have
Yes, sir.
145? Okay,
Yes, that is correct.
just
So,
want
so
to
had we not
clarify
had
that.
that, we would have had over 230 vacancies.
Yeah.
So,
Gotcha,
yes, sir.
gotcha. Are any of those that we recommended, do you have a count on how many of those people were certified in exceptional student education?
Unfortunately, it was a smaller number than we wanted. It was about 14 that we actually had show up to the hiring fair that we were able to actually put in ESE positions. So we still have quite a few that we're going to be tracking down. But remember, this is the first wave.
Sure.
So we do still have some ESE applicants that are out there that are qualified. And so now what'll probably happen is that principals will circle back around with them and look to see what's available and be culling from that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cuthbert?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cologne?
So that 145 is our instructional vacancies after our hiring, or what are our projected vacancies for next year right as of right now?
As of right now, the 145 is our projected vacancy. That is after the 92 that we've hired. Yes, sir. So right now we have 145 slots that are available for folks to move into. And so we're going to start working from now until, of course, the first day of pre-planning to make sure that every one of those are filled.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cologne. Ms. Haynes?
Hi, Mr. Weston. Thank you for the update. It's very much appreciated.
Thank
So what are the next steps that you're doing? I know that I did go look on the vacancy, website piece, and I saw that you had positions posted there for individuals to continue to, put their name in for. But do we have any other, next steps for additional virtual job fairs or things like that?
Yes, actually, and Ms. McKinney has been working kind of really hard, kind of beating the path to trying to find every opportunity we possibly can. She signed up for some additional virtual fairs as well. And we have some smaller ones. Remember, this was kind of our own homegrown one. We also have it's the Florida Teach-In that comes up, and that traditionally comes up in May. We're still waiting to see how that's going to happen virtually as well. So we do have a number of things that are going to be coming up. We've already been working, of course, with our universities, and she does a great job of reaching out to make sure we hit our interns. We've offered our LOIs, which are letter of interest, to those applicants. So I think we have 14 that are outstanding right now that we're probably going to plug into those 145 that we have right now and be able to fill them as well. So really the big hit was, or the big lift for this past week was those 92 and getting them in positions and places. So we've done that now, which, by the way, if you look at where we were last year with our hiring fair, remember we actually were only able to offer LOIs last year at our hiring fair. We weren't actually able to place people into the positions because we didn't have them yet. So we're already ahead of the game. Of course, 92 people, still have 145 to go, but we're really pushing to get those in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Mr. West, I don't have any questions at all, but thank you.
Great. Thank you, board members. Appreciate it.
All righty. Superintendent Fritz, is there anything you would like to comment on?
Nope, I'm just extremely proud that our virtual fair efforts have been as successful as they have. I will share with you, for the first time in a long time, Volusia is, we are competitive with other districts as far as getting those folks, because we are hiring them now and not waiting. And so I'm very excited and appreciative of all the efforts of the HR team and our principals to get these folks on board. I'm very concerned about that going into next year. We certainly um, are 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 trying to hire as many people as we can, but being in the virtual world certainly is a hindrance when it comes to hiring staff. So just a very appreciative and know that we will continue this all the way up until the first day of school.
Thank you, sir. Moving down to board action item 16.01, Superintendent Fritz.
I'd like to call Mr. Stephen Grube, Director for Planning and Business Services, and Mr. Greg Aiken, Chief Operating Officer. Come forward.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Fritz. Thank you for allowing us to have a few minutes this evening to go over this item for you. The attendance boundaries that we're talking about here have already been, to modify this policy 202, have been presented to the board November 12th, 2019, December 10th, 2019, and a board workshop on February 11th, 2020. And several different meetings with our community members and written communication with affected families. There are two, what we're going to call revisions to this policy. First one is revision A, which is Citrus Grove attendance boundary going to George Marks boundary, or going to that boundary going to George Marks Elementary School. The second revision is DeBerry Elementary School, a small location there, going to Enterprise Elementary School, and that boundary change we're recommending. This is for an adoption this evening. We've already went through all of the other process. If you have any questions, Steve and I are here to answer those.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Akins. Board members, do you have any questions? Starting with you, Ms. Haynes.
No, since both of these rezoning of attendance impacts the areas in my district, I have reviewed all of this and I asked prior questions. So at this time, I don't have any further questions, but thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cologne?
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Persis?
Madam Chair, as long as Ms. Haynes is good with them, and I know she's done a very thorough job and heard from the parents. I want to thank her for her input throughout the process, and also to our school district folks. As we all know, anytime you're changing a school zone for families, it can be problematic. But I think that the care that has been given to this process and the time that was devoted to it, I believe we've come out with an excellent plan. So just wanted to express my thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cuthbert.
I just wanted to reiterate, I agree with Mr. Persis as well as Mrs. Haynes, that Enterprise has room. There's no addition of any portables, correct?
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You're correct.
Okay, then it's fine with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we entertain a vote, do we have anyone for public participation on this amendment item? Ms. Schultz?
No, we do not at this time.
Thank you. Superintendent Fritz, we accept the recommendation.
Yeah, the superintendent recommends the adoption of policy amendments to School Board Policy 202, the establishment of attendance areas, modifying the Citrus Grove Elementary, George Marks Elementary, DeBerry Elementary, and Enterprise Elementary attendance zones, and that rising 4th and 5th graders be offered the ability to remain at Citrus Grove and DeBerry Elementary at the parent or guardian's option, but without district transportation services.
Colleagues, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
The motion was properly moved by Mrs. Haynes, second by Mr. Cologne. Any other discussion?
I just have one thing to add, and it's something that we learned when we were talking about the rezoning of in the future of Pride, and it was that a lot of the families actually had variances. And so if we're going to say that these apartments are going to go to Enterprise, I'd like us to stick as true to that as possible, because I imagine with the Berry being an A school, we're going to have a lot of families in these apartments who are going to ask for variances, and we're not going to be true to our actual model. So just, these apartments that are going up are brand new, and just something I want to throw out there, because that will keep the integrity of what we're doing, because if we just keep giving variances, then we're not doing anybody any good. So thank you.
Mrs. Wright,
Yes, go right ahead.
I'd like to reiterate the same thing that Mr. Cologne just said. Most of that area that has been rezoned now to go to enterprise was vacant property that now has apartment complexes that are opening that have been built on it. And we need to be true to what we said. We should not start picking and choosing, for students in that area to now go over to DeBerry, which is already at capacity and already has portables on its campus. So, if we go to the trouble to do the rezoning, then we need to stand by what we've selected and not do variances.
Thank you. Any more comments, colleagues? Hearing none. All in favor? I'll start with you, Mr. Cologne.
Yes, yay.
Ms. Haynes?
Yay.
Mr. Persis?
Yay.
Ms. Cuthbert?
Yes.
And Ida, yay. The vote has passed unanimously. Thank you, colleagues. Moving on to item number 16.02, Superintendent Fritz.
I'd like to call Mr. Mark West, Chief HR Officer, forward.
Ms. Wright, board members, Dr. Fritz, thank you for allowing me to bring before you the adoption of the proposed amendment to School Board Policy 403, the assessment of performance. This is to put us in compliance with the Florida Department of Education mandate that the school district adopt a policy that allows us to use best and brightest awards to reward our effective and highly effective teachers. Oh, I'm sorry. This has actually been in the works. Excuse me. This has been in the works for a number of months, and we are actually bringing this so that we can go ahead and pay out those best and brightest funds for the year. Just as a side note, these are specifically for the best and brightest funds for this year. The legislature has already said that they're going to be doing away with those best and brightest funds for next year, but we have to have this in policy in order to be able to pay our teachers for this year. So that is my recommendation or my request. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Fritz.
Superintendent recommends the adoption of the proposed amendments to School Board Policy 403.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
The motion has been approved by Ms. Haynes, approved by Mr. Persis. Any other discussion?
Yes,
Madam, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Persis, and then you, Ms. Cuthbert.
Okay. I just wanted to commend Mr. West. Anytime I see an amended policy and it has fewer words than the previous policy, I'm all for it. So thank
Yes.
you for paring it down. I love delete, scratch through.
There'll be more of those to come.
Oh, I love
Okay.
it. Keep it going. Keep it going. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Persis. Ms. Cuthbert.
Okay, and just to make sure, our media specialists are not included in this because of the state of Florida, correct?
Actually, the recognition part, all instructional employees are included. So yes, ma'am. So that's good news for our media specialists, our guidance counselors, our even our paraprofessionals. So
they're also included?
They will be receiving a portion of it. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's remarkable. Now,
Yes.
this is the list that Ms. McKinney presented to us earlier in the school year.
That is
Okay.
correct. Yes, ma'am.
And we have correctly identified everyone. So, and does everyone been notified that they're going to receive something?
Yes, ma'am. We have checked and double checked and
Okay.
quadruple checked to make sure that those folks that are to be on the list are on that list. So, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
do we know how much money is being distributed?
I do not know that because it's a pot of money that we get from the state, and then what happens is that's the amount that we pay out. However many people are in that, there's a divisor, and then that's how much they get paid. I think Ms. Pendleton has that actual number because she's the one that actually is cutting the checks. But that number was changing because the number of people that were eligible were changing until recently.
Okay. Thank you very much. I just want to make sure. Thanks.
Yeah.
Good news for the media specialist. Great.
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other discussion? And Eric, colleagues, I forgot to check with Mrs. Schultz to see if there was someone out who wanted to speak to this policy. Mrs. Schultz, did we have anyone wanting to speak to this policy?
No.
Thank you. Now we'll call the vote. All in favor, Mr. Cologne,
Yay.
Ms. Haynes,
Yay.
Mr. Persis,
Yay.
Ms. Cuthbert,
Absolutely.
and Ida, yay. Thank you, and the vote is unanimous. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. West.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 16.03, Superintendent Fritz.
I'd like to call our Audit Committee Chair, Ms. Jamie Haynes, our Director, the Director for Business Risk Consulting for RSM, Ms. Clara Ewing, and Laura Manlove, who is the Manager Risk Consultant for RSM, to come forward to talk to us about our audit report.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. I have my video on and I also have a slide deck. Perfect. So thank you for having me. My name is Laura Manlove. With me tonight on the phone is Jennifer Murtha, who is our firm's public sector practice partner. We are with RSM, the internal auditors for the district. We spend 100% of our time serving the public sector with a focus on Florida school districts. Next slide. One of the most important questions internal audit needs to answer is, what should we be auditing? Professional standards for internal auditors require a risk assessment to be performed, from which internal audit will then create a risk-based audit. The objective is to prioritize the resources allocated to the internal audit function so that those areas with highest priority are sufficiently covered. We want to identify those areas that fell in the upper right-hand red quadrant. To perform our risk assessment, we performed research on the district's budget, financial reporting, policies and procedures, prior audit reports, board meeting discussions, and recent media publications. We also interviewed school board members, the superintendent, and several members of senior leadership to obtain their perspective on risk. We applied our professional experience and critically analyzed the risks using several factors. Our risk assessment process identified the district's top 10 high priority audit areas. Next slide. The top 10 are in no particular order in that they are all considered high risk and fall within that red quadrant. We have put them into a potential project completion order subject to the audit committee and board's direction. Number one is a topic that is widely discussed in the public sector and in the internal auditing profession. Information technology has new leadership, Clint, who is busy learning everything he can about the district. I can't think of a better way to learn a new role than to go through an audit with us. Our IT experts will work with Volusia to map out where your sensitive data is stored and how it is protected. And we will provide a written report, including recommendations on how to remediate any issues noted. This will provide both your CIO and us as your internal audit team with valuable data we can use to pinpoint critical areas for decision-making and potential additional testing going forward. Area number two, maintenance. This department oversees a variety of critical and decentralized functions to support the schools and district facilities. Many times, in addition to the large amount of funding and well-defined controls that are needed to support this function, risk can lie in public perception if maintenance appears to have been performed inequitably across the various parts of the district. Number three, construction. Many factors contribute to the high inherent risk of this function, including high dollars, multiple funding sources, including the half-cent sales surtax, multiple layers of vendors and related agreements, Florida statute related to procurement of contractors, and specifically designed internal controls to review the pay applications before making these large payments. Next slide. Number four, timekeeping. The district employs multiple varieties of employees who require specific methods of timekeeping. We have exempt employees, non-exempt, unionized staff, support staff, and more. Proper capturing of employee time can directly impact the payroll expense of the district, which is a significant portion of the district's budget. In addition, risks related to employment law can be mitigated with proper timekeeping. This process encompasses the entirety of the district, which is why it is high on our top 10 list. Number 5, penetration testing. Following our sensitive data assessment in item number 1, our team will perform targeted penetration testing. We call our team of experts our ethical hackers, who will be able to identify weak points in the district's cyber defense. We'll perform simulated attacks in a controlled environment and will provide recommendations for remediation. This type of testing should be performed at least annually, as real-world threat actors are constantly changing their attack methodologies. All of our reports that we issue related to IT and security can be issued under Florida statute confidentially and issued directly to the superintendent. Number 6, white fleet. The district has many vehicles in its possession for use by its employees, as do many districts in Florida. Vehicle usage and maintenance procedures, including an analysis of a break-even point in comparison with paying mileage to employees, can represent a cost savings to the district. Next slide. Number 7, property control. Tangible property purchased and owned by the district should be tagged, tracked, and properly disposed of. Information should be transparently presented to the board for oversight. In addition, proper safeguarding procedures should be implemented to mitigate risk of loss. Can you all still hear me?
Now we can, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Number 8, purchasing compliance. The process of purchasing the goods and services for the district can be very complex and are outlined in multiple Florida statutes. We will assess the district's processes and procedures for compliance with the statutes and will perform testing of transactions to determine the procedures are functioning as intended. Number 9, recruiting and onboarding. HR has new leadership and has also recently undergone an audit from an outside party. Once leadership implements the remediation plan, it would be appropriate for internal audit to take a look and assure leadership that the new processes are functioning well and providing the desired results. This area is considered high risk as it is highly manual and directly impacts the reputation of the district both internally and in the community. And number 10, healthcare. This is a hot topic nationwide, particularly in the light of the recent pandemic. Healthcare costs continue to rise for all types of entities, including the public sector. And a deep analysis of cost drivers and an audit to ensure that your third-party providers are complying with their agreements can be extremely beneficial for the superintendent and the board in their decision-making. This item is in the top 10, but it is listed last as we understand that district leadership is working to provide additional information to the superintendent and the board for internal review. We will continue to monitor Volusia's risk environment surrounding healthcare as the decision-making process continues to play out. An audit may be appropriate in the near future. Next slide. Thank you. So thank you again for allowing us to present to you tonight. I am happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you for the presentation. I'll start with Ms. Cuthbert since I can see her face first.
Hi, I see where so much is operations. How in depth do you go into our maintenance, our planning, construction? Because we're in the middle of our rebuild and building new schools. How far do you go into as you audit what we do?
Well, we can go pretty deep. In terms of maintenance versus construction, I believe those would be 2 separate audits because we can go to a level of depth. For our construction, which seems to be a favorite for us to begin with, we would want to look at the procurement process, how we're selecting contractors and negotiating with those contractors and deciding on a GMP or a design build fixed fee price. Then how are we monitoring that that contractor in how they're billing the district and making sure it aligns with the agreement that we signed with them. So we'll be doing some deep testing and looking at specific invoices and transactions related to your construction projects.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Haynes?
So what I'd like to add at this time, if this is the appropriate time, is we met on April 15th. The Internal Audit Committee met at that time, and we reviewed every one of these items, and we actually came up with our recommendation, and it was unanimous. So is this the time at which I can share that, Mrs. Wright?
Go right ahead, Ms. Haynes.
Okay, so after reviewing all of the 10 items, what the committee put forth that we'd like to recommend to you this evening is that we combine number 1, information technology with sensitive data assessment, and number 5, which is information technology penetration testing. We asked if the internal auditors could combine those 2 items into one, since if we're going to come and do technology, let's do the entire area at this time, because we felt that, yes, that is a very important area when you're looking at student data and everything, but also that's an area, especially now that we're in a virtual world at the moment, that, you know, unfortunately there's hackers and things out there. So we would like to make sure that that area is safe for our students, our teacher, our financial areas and everything. The other area that we would like to see an internal audit start on, and Ms. Cuthbert, it's going to be the one you just asked about, is operation services with planning, design, and construction. And we felt that that was an important area because we're completing the construction right now of George Marks Elementary. We've just started the construction of Deltona Middle, and there's going to be continued construction following that. And having Mr. Grube, who is also new to that area, just as Clint is new to, Griffin is new to the information and technology area, we felt it would be a good roadmap to help Mr. Grube out coming into a new area if we went ahead and moved forward with an internal audit on number 3. So 1 and 5, and they did agree to combine those 2, and 3 are the ones that we're putting forth, and they can run simultaneously. They do not have to run separately because they have teams that's their specialty area that they will be providing us with the auditing services.
Thank you.
And you're welcome, Ms. Wright.
Superintendent Fritz, do you have a question for Ms. Haynes in reference to what she just reported?
No, I actually had a debriefing with RSM and support the recommendation to move forward. I think it's the right direction for us. I think we're making changes in information technology that I feel comfortable with moving in that direction. All of you have received a report on the progress where we're at with the ERP, so you can see some things are changing. However, because there was such a heavy emphasis on that, when I came into the district, I think that's an area that is worthy to be looked at.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cologne?
So I too agree with that recommendation, and even without having heard the recommendation, number 3 seemed like a right one at this time, seeing as we are moving into the construction of Deltona Middle. And so whatever we can perfect and process there just means we're going to do it right as we move through this process. So I'm grateful. I too, again, am glad we're able to look at our information technology. I think, you know, this was an area of concern for many of us from the get-go. And of course, this pandemic spoke to the importance of that area and having our processes be solid. So I'm supportive of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Persis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support the recommendation as well.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent Fritz?
The superintendent recommends moving forward with the following 2 audits at a cost of not to exceed $100,000. Number 1, the information technology sensitive data assessment and cybersecurity internal and external network intrusion penetration testing. That's number 1, combined with number 5. Number 2, the operations, service planning, design, and construction, number 3.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been properly moved by Mr. Persis, second by Mr. Cologne. Any other discussion? And I see from Kelly, we do not have anyone for public comments as it relates to the audit committee. Mr. Cologne?
Yay.
Ms. Haynes?
Yay.
Mr. Persis?
Yay.
Ms. Cuthbert?
Yes.
And Ida Wright, yay. Thank you. The motion has been approved unanimously. It is 4:56. We have a presentation starting with the district vision plan for 1701 in Ortona, Osceola. Before we start that, can we take maybe a 4-minute break quickly before our 5 o'clock, and so that we could come back and have public participation at 5? So if you just want to mute your phones and turn off your cameras for about 3 minutes, let's do that. And then we'll come back and go back up to item 5. Let me go back to see what it is. We'll go back up to public participation. That should have been at 14:01 at 5 p.m. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Do we have everyone back? Ms. Haynes, are you present?
I'm present.
Ms. Cuthbert?
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am, I'm
Present.
here.
Okay. Mr. Cologne? Mr. Cologne, are you back? Mr. Cologne?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you're back. Thank you. Ms. Schultz, do we have any guests? We're going back to 14.01. Do we have any guests for public participation on any item related to education?
Yes, we have Miss Elizabeth Albert. She has joined the meeting.
Ms. Albert?
Good afternoon, Mrs. Wright.
Good afternoon. Please state your
Just
name.
wanted to, yes, gotcha. So Elizabeth Albert, I am the proud president of the Volusia United Educators. So today, I hope, was a very good day for all of you. It was a very good day for us. I want to commend the work of Miss Pendleton and her team in the payroll department, and Mr. West and Kim McKinney and all of the team in human resources who worked so very diligently to get those recognition bonuses out to our folks. It is very much appreciated, and many of our friends were not anticipating that, and so we're very grateful and thankful that was done in the way that it was, particularly during this time. And so while today was a great day in that regard, it was a busy day apparently in Tallahassee, and there's something that's very disturbing to me that I want to just speak about tonight. And that is a memo or an announcement that has come out from the Florida Association of District School Superintendents. It's actually titled the K-12 Return to School Recommended Guidelines. And as I read through the document, it's fairly what you would expect, I guess, through about the first 2 pages. And then when you get to the 3rd page, there's something that is particularly disturbing to me. And there's a paragraph there that's titled Contractual Working Conditions for Employees. And within this document, the FADS actually tells whoever is reading this, suggests that as statewide employees are being asked to be flexible due to the uncertainty created by the health crisis, they recommend the state suspends portions of union contracts regarding working conditions that are impacted by COVID-19 during the 2020-21 school year. Now, although I can't see you, I know that you're as shocked as I was when I first read this, because certainly, a state agency, a state association would never suggest to anyone in any school district that we do something that would interfere with a contract, particularly when we know that our Florida Constitution prohibits interference with any kind of contracts. I'm very surprised that FAD wants to usurp our local authority and try to undo the good work that we as a district, collaboratively, Volusia County Schools and Volusia United Educators, the work that we have done to navigate this time and this worldwide pandemic. I am appalled. I think this recommendation is reckless and irresponsible, and I hope that you do too. And I hope that you haven't forgotten that FADS, along with the Florida School Board Association, they were on the forefront of supporting that governor's plan for the $47,500 a year pay package for beginning teachers, which I know, because I've looked at the 3rd calc of the FESP, is going to put quite a hardship on Volusia County schools. So, you know, today when teachers and support professionals are working harder than ever to meet the needs of our students, when anybody who's paying attention recognizes the good work that teachers and our district are doing to meet the needs of children and families and communities, I don't know why anyone would suggest that, we do something as reckless as try to upend a union contract that's been mutually agreed upon by both parties, the district and our organization. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention today, because I believe that, Volusia County, we are moving in the right direction. We of course have our differences, but I don't think we need someone telling us how to manage our business. So that's what I wanted to share, and I hope you have a good evening.
Thank you, and you do the same, Ms. Albert. Ms.
Thank
Schultz,
you.
do we have any other callers?
We do not.
Thank you. Moving on to the agenda, Superintendent Fritz, we're moving to item 17.01, District Vision Statement.
Yes, Madam Chair. This board tasked me with the purpose of building a strategic plan. In fact, you made that my sole goal for your superintendent for the first 6 months on the job. And so we came to you and we back on March 10th, and we brought Julia Linfors and Corey Gordon from Delivery Ed to you to have some conversation in a workshop setting that would talk to us about our areas of concern. And as board members, you each had individual meetings with Corey. She got to hear from you. I held focus meetings. Kelly was able to collect all the information from not just our administrators, but also our teachers. We also held focus groups with our bargaining employees that are non-instructional. And after that point of March 10th, Corey and Julia began working with our teams at the district level in 5 goal groups. And these goal groups are looking at strategies for the next 3 years to move us to that A and beyond in all different divisions. In addition to those strategies, they're looking at barriers and solutions to around those barriers that may present those challenges. And as I shared with you before, this strategic plan is built and based on accountability. There is built-in measures that staff is accountable to this work. If it's not in the strategic plan, it's not work that we're going to do. It is really a driving force. And so today, Corey and Julia are here with you to share those big buckets. That they are the same big buckets that I've shared with you in one of my updates not too long ago, but also to walk through the process of determining what vision and mission we will have as a school district. So I turn it over to Corey and Julia.
Good evening. Hi, Madam Chair and board members. It's nice to be with you all, although I'd much rather be there in person. We're still miserably cold here in DC. March 10th certainly feels like a lifetime ago. I'm sure it does for you all as well. But we have been working diligently even through all of this to continue the work of the strategic plan. And I commend Dr. Fritz and his staff for their commitment to this work and their recognition that actually in this time, despite all of the other distractions and need to focus on the urgent matters, this long-term strategic planning work is just as, if not more important to help us navigate this immediate crisis, but also to help us continue toward the goals that we have for our district and what we know is so important for the students of Volusia. So we're really thrilled that we've been able to continue this work. We've done it mostly and almost entirely remotely, which is a challenge, but also a real testament to the commitment of your staff and at the district. And we are really excited about what's emerging and excited to share with you the beginnings of what's emerging from our conversations. This is still very much a work in progress, so we're really sharing a sort of early slice, if you will, of the work with you to get your feedback and input and to make sure you all feel informed along the way as the district continues this work. Next slide, Erin. So what we're hoping to accomplish today, I think my feed is a little bit slow, so sometimes I don't see if the slide's been advanced, so I apologize for that. What we're hoping to accomplish today is to share with you some vision, mission, and core belief statements. If you recall, when we started this work together, we had you do some brainstorming around that. We shared your brainstorming with the staff, and we have crafted a couple of options around vision and mission statements that we'd like to share and get your feedback on. And then we'd also like to share with you the beginnings of what we call the architecture, which is sort of the goals and the metrics that will be associated with those goals that we'll be working toward as a district over the next 3 years. And finally, we'll talk about where we go from here. Next slide. So just a reminder to ground us in what we're thinking about here. As we think about this strategic planning work, we are thinking both about bold reform, things that are going to be exciting and new and innovative, but also about doing the things we already do better, and making sure that we prioritize and focus our efforts so that we can actually execute well. So if you remember this 2x2 I shared with you back in March, we are talking about kind of avoiding the status quo and avoiding controversy without impact, both of which are done by making sure our quality of execution is high and ensuring that we get to improved outcomes and in some instances transformation of the work that we're doing, but always thinking with an eye towards successful delivery. And so this work of the mission and vision, the core beliefs and the goals are sort of the driving foundation that will underpin the specific strategies and activities that the district will focus on over the next 3 years. Next slide. So what you'll see here is the set of 2 vision statements that, again, are works in progress, but emerged from our conversation with district leaders. In the day after we met with you, we shared with them the language that you all had brainstormed, and we asked them to craft some options. And these were the 2 that emerged as front runners in terms of what the district is hoping to achieve as the vision for the next 3 years. So the first one here is to create lifelong learners prepared for a changing world. And gosh, that resonates right now more than ever. And then option 2, to provide for all students a premier integrative educational experience that maximizes their success in a global society. So we're going to give you a chance in a couple of minutes to sort of, we can come back to these and get your thoughts on these. What we don't want to do right now, of course, is wordsmith these, but if you have one or the other that you have particular affinity toward or against, we'd love to hear that and go back to the team to continue refining the language in these statements. But this is the current thinking around 2 options for the vision statement. On the next slide, you'll see some options for the mission statement. And here again, we took your input and used that to come up with some options for where we want to go with the mission. I think you're on the next slide, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to read off mission statements. So option 1, Volusia County Schools is a nurturing, collaborative learning community that prepares all students to be responsible citizens who are college, career, and life ready. Option 2, Volusia County Schools will ignite a passion for learning in all students to be college and career ready and productive citizens of our community. So again, some differences here, but you can imagine, you can sort of close your eyes and picture the kind of district that we are working toward becoming as you look at those. And again, we'll give you a chance to weigh in on which of those options resonates with you or which language you prefer, and again, continue to work towards coming up with a final version. And then finally, on the next slide, Erin, we have the core belief statements. And again, these are kind of guiding principles that we want to use to direct the work of the district, to serve as guardrails, to keep us on track, to keep us grounded in what it is that's most important to us as a district. And so we've crafted these in a sort of we believe mantra. And you'll see the we believe stem can fit with all of the beliefs that are drafted below. So we believe that people are our strength. We believe in the importance of building and sustaining trust and mutual respect. We believe in shared decision-making that's accomplished through transparent conversations and processes. We believe all systems should impact student learning and are rooted in social purpose. And we believe in maximizing our potential one student at a time. So again, that's a way of expressing what it is that's most core to who we are as a district, and what we hope will drive all of the work that we do together over the coming years and into the future. So those are sort of the high level aspirational statements about where we hope to be. We've then also taken those and said, okay, if this is our vision, if this is our direction, what does that mean for the actual concrete goals and metrics that we're going to be looking at and measuring over the next 3 years? So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Julia to share the buckets, as Dr. Fritz mentioned, that I believe you've seen before, and a little more specificity about the kind of metrics that we're thinking about measuring as the most critical outcomes in each of those areas. So Julia?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for giving Corey and I the space here to share with you a little bit about the work that we've been engaging in with Dr. Fritz and his leadership team since we were there in person a month and a half ago, which, you know, at the risk of saying it too many times, feels like ages ago, that Corey and I were enjoying the lovely downtown area you have there, and having some great restaurant meals together as we did the work. So we've met with core members of each of the 5 what we're calling goal teams. And we've had one set of workshops, and we're engaging in a second set of workshops. The goal areas that you see here, and there are 3 on this slide and 2 on the following slide, those goal areas come from that workshop that we did together on the 11th with staff and leadership. So in that process, they identified what are those big buckets, the goals that we want to have as part of our strategic plan. And in the workshops that we've had since then, we've focused on taking those high-level goal areas, engaging in some root cause analysis. What has prevented us in the past from, for example, recruiting, retaining, and developing high-quality staff? And through that root cause analysis, the teams have identified a set of 2 or 3 metrics, things that are measurable, things that we can measure, and we'll be able to see changes in over time that will help us know to what extent we're achieving in these goal areas. So that's the first step that we engage in, is once we have the goal areas, we work on the outcome metrics. Now, in terms of numbers, right, you don't see actual numbers here like, you know, from 50% to 100%, for example. That's work that the goal leadership teams are still engaging in. They're working on benchmarking. They're identifying where do we stand right now on some of these metrics, and what do some of our peer districts look like on some of these metrics, and what's achievable based on the resources that we have to put into achieving these goals. So I'll walk through these goal and draft outcome metrics here. And the next step that we're working on with the teams is to develop strategies to make progress on these metrics. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But in terms of the draft outcome metrics that we have to share with you all today, our first goal, and the core goal, I would say, of the district, is to ensure high quality instruction for all students. And ways that team is thinking about measuring progress toward the goal is graduation rates, which includes engagement prior to high school. So engagement with even from the pre-K level of educators and leaders, that graduation and post-secondary success is a core responsibility of everyone in the district, not only, you know, high school instructors and high school leaders and support staff. And then, of course, proficiency as measured by those state assessments in the kindergarten, 3, 5, 8, and 11th grades. And percent of students demonstrating post-graduation success through enrollment in some kind of training, college, or workforce, with details of what that means for each of those potential outcomes for students. For the second bucket, recruit, retain, and develop high quality staff, that group is really looking at hires and vacancies. So what is the fill rate? What are we seeing in terms of attracting qualified applicants within a set time frame, right? We don't want critical openings to stay open for long periods of time, for example, without highly qualified applicants. The percent of effective or highly effective staff retained year over year, so really honing in on that highly effective folks in the district that we want to make sure that we're keeping in the district, because we really need their quality work. And then percent of staff reporting that they are supported as professionals and regularly receive actionable feedback. That's something that really came out in the workshop that we did, was the need for staff to see what is their path, what is their role in the larger success of the district, and feeling that support as professionals, regardless of what level or what function they may play in the district. And the third area, the third goal area, is around providing a safe and supportive environment. And this is where that team is really looking at things like disciplinary incidents, incidents involving police, Baker Acts, and percent of schools passing the safety audit. So there's the school hardening, school safety component, and then there's also the student discipline and equity piece there. And we'll look at the other two categories on the next slide for the two goal areas. Finally, the fourth and fifth goal, we're looking at ensuring resources and operational processes are strategically aligned. This goal actually encompasses quite a large bucket of functionality. So that includes operations, that includes finance, and that includes IT and technical resources. So the draft outcome metrics that we have so far for that group are around operations, increasing efficiency, beating KPIs, and then on the finance side, eliminating the reliance on fund balance for recurring expenses. In the fifth category of strength, or the fifth goal area of strengthen communication and community engagement, we're looking at the number of community events and focus groups and number of social media followers and engagement. So that hopefully gives you a sense of the work that the group has engaged, all of the goal teams have engaged in so far. And on the next slide, I think we are ready to talk a little bit about what questions you might have. We can go back to those vision and mission statements that Corey shared if you want to give any feedback or preferences there. And then we'll talk about what we're doing next.
Yes, can you go back to, let's start with the vision statement. So colleagues, I would like to hear your input. What do you think about the two options? Is it something else you are looking for? So let's start with the vision statement. Mr. Persis?
I am unmuting here. Yes, okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I've been doing this a long time and seen a lot of visions and missions and everything. And I'm just wondering, is there really a need to have two statements, a vision and a mission? And I don't really, I know that the vision's supposed to be like where you're headed, and the mission is supposed to be like how you're getting there. But it's a mission that we always state, and it's the mission statement that is typically the shorter one of the two. Again, we can create any kind of vision, lofty statement there, and both of those are fine. But I'm kind of just concerned about the mission and keeping it something that we can easily state, remember, and keep our focus on it.
Thank you, Mr. Persis. Ms. Haynes?
As far as the vision goes, I feel that option number one is, it makes a statement, but yet it's simplistic for even our youngest, students. And I think it's clear what it's saying. I like option number two, but I don't know that it would be clear to everyone, because my thought is, yes, we want them to be successful. The idea behind education is that they can grow up and be productive citizens and everything. I'm just worried that number two may not be clear to everyone in the, community. I feel number one is an easier, statement to read and clearly understand.
Thank you. Mr. Cologne?
So I'm all about the simplistic, and I like that first one better. It should be something that everybody can remember, that's easy, and the reality is you can fill it up with a lot of really big words, but in the end, really we're creating lifelong learners prepared for a changing world, and it's ironic that we started down this road before all of this, and so the word changing, I would have probably initially thought evolving, but then when Mrs. Haynes just said that about even the little ones, you know what, why make it complicated when it's really a simple concept? So I like the simplicity of option one. Option two, I may never memorize.
Thank you, Ms. Cuthbert.
I guess I'm the language in chief. I kind of liked a couple of the phrasing in the second one, but I prefer the simplicity of the first one. So I changed it just a wee bit, and what we want to do is create successful lifelong learners prepared for an ever-changing global society. Very simple, and I like the ever-changing part. Not just changing, but it consistently changes, which is why we need lifelong learners. And you can take out the word successful if you want, that's no problem. But I like that global society because.
So you like number two because they asked us not to wordsmith now, and we could.
Well, I understand, but no, I like the brevity of the first one, but I liked a couple of the phrasing in the second, just to bring up to the first.
Okay. Okay.
And make it like ever changing in a global society. That's all. Otherwise, I think it's great. I prefer the first one.
Okay. And I agree with you. I like the first one, and I would put ever changing as well. Ever changing world to ever changing global society. I was just going to give wordsmiths a little later, but
yeah.
Number one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so right now we like option number one. You heard maybe some wordsmith about prepare a ever-changing global society. So you could play with that and get with Ms. Cuthbert. She's our English teacher, and she can. But we do like the simplicity. I don't like anything that's complicated or convoluted. Just get to the point. What is the point?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for this feedback. Yeah.
All right, so can we go on to the mission statement? Mr. Persis.
Yes, ma'am. Let's see. I would like, I think I said I like number two. I don't know about ignite, maybe create, but I like number two. If I was doing number two, I'd put a period after the word citizens. I think of our community isn't really necessary.
Yeah, I agree.
Ms. Cuthbert, stop it.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Persis.
That's one of those dangling prepositional phrases.
All right, Ms. Cuthbert, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I kind of liked them both, parts of both. I thought the nurturing collaborative learning community is too much. The passion is simple and it meets what we need to do, but in option two, there are too many ands. So I thought it would be better to say to be college and career ready, prepared to be productive citizens. So I just flipped it around a little bit.
Okay. All
but
right.
Number two, because I thought the first one had too much, but life ready is productive citizens. And I think that is what we want. We say that at graduation every year. We want our students to go out and be good citizens, productive, and change our world. So, but life ready, I think, is too general.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Haynes?
I prefer option number two. I agree with taking off the of our community. I like what Mrs. Cuthbert just suggested to remove some of the ands. If we're going to say this, though, and I know that we're on mission, if you look back, though, at vision where you guys were wanting to add the global society, does it have to be global society as the way to close that out? Because I'm just still thinking of everyone that's reading it. Like on here, I'm great with option two with the changes that have already been recommended. That was some of the notes that I'd had. I just think simplistic is better.
Okay. All right. Mr. Cologne?
So I like option 2 again because of the simplicity. Playing devil's advocate, in this current day and age, are we going to send the message here that college is the necessarily preferred way? So college and career ready. I don't know that that's consistent with our times. Again, just, because I almost like something along the lines of ready for life. And again, but to say that college is the only way, I don't know how we can message that where college and vocational careers, or you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I just, that's just a thought.
Okay.
But I like the second one better.
Okay. So I guess it's up to me. You have something, Ms. Cuthbert?
Yes, if I could. I think a lot of that, the reason why they put in the college and career ready, because see those are the causes. The effect is the productive citizens. So they're not all equal. You want students to be college and career ready. In other words, they have a choice. We want them to graduate with the ability to choose college and career only, because we don't have military in there, but at least they have the choice to make those selections. So if you want to put the word choice in there, so they can choose to be either college and or career, I think that would muddy it up a little bit. But see, that's why the word ready is in there. So they are ready to choose that if they want. But eventually, because they are career and college ready, they will become productive citizens of our of the community, but that's implied or inferred. Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Persis.
Yeah, I was just thinking, it might just be simple, just to replace the word and college and career with college or career. Takes out the and too. Students to be college or career ready and productive citizens, period.
Okay.
It should be and or.
No. Or.
Well,
Ms. Haynes?
And I agree with Mr. Persis on that, because this is about, as they exit, Volusia County Schools as a senior, that they're either they're ready to either go on to college or go on to a career. So I like the or there. And then I think that helps with Mr. Cologne's statement, because I'm with him on that. I want us to support students in whatever option they want. And as far as the military goes, I kind of look at the military as a career piece. So if they've chosen to go to the military, I view that under career. But I don't want kids to feel as if our only support for them is straight to college or university. I want that career piece too. So I like the or. Thank you, Mr. Persis.
Okay.
This is Dr. Fritz. If I could just chime in for a second and just bring up a point that college no longer just means your traditional college setting. We have kids going off to college for HVAC nowadays. Our career technical colleges are called that. They're called career technical colleges. And I just wanted to make that point. Many of our young folks are going to Daytona State, and they are studying those CTE areas. And so I just want to make sure that we understand what we're saying, that we want them to, when we say college, we're not just talking about going to get a psychology degree or an engineering degree.
Thank you, Dr. Fritz, which brings up my point. I don't like neither one. I don't like neither one, because I don't think that our goal should be, I like part of one and part of two. I just would have said Volusia County Schools, if I had to use two, will ignite a passion for learning in all students to be productive citizens in their community, period. It doesn't matter if they're going to college. It doesn't matter if they work at McDonald's. McDonald's, it does not matter where they go as long as they're productive citizens within their community. So I really didn't like either one, if you want to know the truth. I just thought it was too wordy. And our goal is to make sure that when they leave us, they can go be productive citizens.
I could definitely support that.
I support that 100%.
Yeah, I would still put the period after productive citizens. They
Yeah,
need to.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And we can wordsmith. I just like it again to be simple.
Right.
Just simple.
You know.
So I think just to make sure I
Madam-
understand, sorry, basically you're suggesting, Ms. Wright, to take out the college and career ready piece altogether and just focus on igniting a passion for learning in all students to be productive citizens.
Yeah.
That is simply beautiful.
Absolutely.
And
You
Ms.
know,
Chair, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Madam
Mr. Persis.
I'm thinking back. I remember one time seeing something that the mission statement has to meet the T-shirt test. You remember that? That it ought to be able to fit on a T-shirt. You ought to be able to write your mission statement on a T-shirt and still be able to read it. So if we cut out all that stuff, I think we could fit that on a T-shirt. That'd be good.
You're right, and that's the school I come from. Short to the point.
The T-shirt test. I love it.
T-shirt test. Okay. Any other comments, Dr. Fritz? Anything you would like to input about the mission?
No, ma'am. It's your vision and mission, so we will take it and run with it from your comments, and we will go back and bring back more options. This is a process. The goal is to have a completed, workable draft, finalized and ready by the end of July for us to be able to go out into the community and say, this is our strategic plan and this is how we're going to monitor it.
Okay, thank you. We can move to the next one, Ms. Corey. Core beliefs. I'm gonna start with Ms. Haynes on this one.
I actually liked all 5 statements. I mean, we could maybe tweak the words a little, but I believe that people are our strength. And, I love the last one, in maximizing our potential one student at a time. But I also appreciate the mutual respect, the decision making, and transparency. So I'm open to any word adjustments, but I do like what it says.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Mr. Cologne?
So I am good with all the statements. I think that the last statement would probably be my first statement. Starting off with students, because what you speak about most is where you're, not that it's that important or not as important, but we start off with students. It's the reason we're here. And so in maximizing the potential one student at a time, that all systems impact student learning are rooted in social purpose. We could go there, that's fine. And then we could move on to, again, it just kind of grounds us in what's important to us. So I would probably consider putting those more student-centric, we believe, up first. That's it, thank you.
I agree with Mr. Cologne on that.
Okay, so I don't have to come back to you. Mr. Persis.
I love that. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Mr. Cologne's right on point there, putting that last one first. I think that the one there, I like that though. People are our strength. I think that's a real strong statement too. I'm not sure we need the word that in front of people. I think it just sounds stronger. We believe people are our strength. And the only other one, I liked all of them too, just like Ms. Haynes said. I think the one that's the weakest is that one that begins all systems impact learning. That's all systems impact learning maybe that's enough. And I don't know what rooted in social purpose means, to be honest with you. So if I don't know what it means, good luck with anybody else being able to figure this out in the general public. So let's do what Ruben was saying with some, let's try to keep these statements simple but strong, and statements that reflect what we believe. And I believe we believe all systems impact student learning.
Thank you. Ms. Cuthbert, where did you go?
Oh, I'm right here.
Okay.
I too wasn't clear to me exactly what social purpose was, but I do like the word rooted. I mean, that's very substantial, and it makes it a very much a significant comment. So making it very, very important. The second one, I thought I like in the importance in the building and sustaining trust, but I like that instead of the and put through, we only achieve the importance of building and sustaining trust through mutual respect.
Hey, Miss Cuthbert, we could put your word rooted there.
Yeah, rooted in mutual respect.
Rooted in mutual respect.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes that better. Yeah.
Because that's what we hear a great deal about in our communication. It's showing mutual respect. And that's from the top down, side to side, bottom up.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's walk through these so that we're on the same page, and then we could talk about how we want them to, but just let's start from the top. So we believe people are our strength, correct?
Yes.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Yes.
Okay. We believe in the importance of, now tell me about this rooted here.
Importance of building
and sustaining trust.
Trust rooted in mutual respect.
Okay, building and sustaining trust rooted in mutual respect. Okay. And shared decision making. We believe in shared decision making process. We believe in a shared decision making. No, we believe in shared decision making.
I guess decision making is a noun. Into shared decision making, which can only be accomplished through transparent conversations and processes.
Yeah, we believe in a shared decision making. In shared. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Who did I cut off? You, Ruben?
No, I just said it's just wordy. I don't know that we're getting to the point. I mean, if we really want this to be something that we live, I give you an example. Advent Health, 80 plus hospitals, hundreds of physicians' practices. Our service standards are keep me safe, love me, make it easy, and own it. That's it. And you could ask any member of our team, keep me safe, and then everything branches off of that. Keep me safe, love me, make it easy, and own it. And so this is great for the sake of, and Corey, you could probably, if I'm off, this is great, but I would really like our core beliefs to be something that we could really live, rather than, this here honestly is just going to be something that's going to be on our website. And so if we're really looking at creating these core beliefs that every member of our organization is going to live and breathe, there's no way they're going to remember any of this.
Okay.
My 2 cents. So
other
than that, I'm okay with it. I just wish it was something that was more simplistic, that we could really, because I've seen in my own organization what a difference those 4 standards make, and boom, you're done. And everybody, I mean, every time you're on a meeting and somebody's not owning it, we're like, own it. Keep me safe, love me, and everything ties into those beliefs.
Okay.
So.
Go ahead, Ms. Cuthbert.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I like maximizing our potential one student at a time. I think that is profound. And that has everything. And all systems impact student learning. That's all that needs to be.
Yeah.
When that third one, and I'm going from bottom up, we believe in transparency, and that includes everything. So we're talking about maximizing our potential, all systems impact student learning, transparency, building and sustaining trust through mutual, rooted in mutual trust. People are our strength. So I think just simplify a little bit. But
yeah, we can go back and work on a simplified version.
Okay.
But I really like that last one, maximizing our potential one student at a time. And I like the word our, because we all own it. See, that shows ownership, our potential, one student at a time. That's really good, because that shows we believe people are our strengths. That's already built into that. And our potential is, how do we achieve that? Through building and sustaining trust, rooted in mutual respect. And how do we get that? Through transparency. And so therefore, and how is it supported? Through all systems which impact student learning. You can do a cause effect, do it as it's built.
Right,
that way you can remember it more.
Yep. Okay. That's really helpful.
Thank you. And so we can have everybody giving their input, because I was actually, Mr. Cologne was going to say what you said. I was going to say, I core believe, say we believe. What do we believe? Do we believe in Volusia? And that's why when we came to this, the core, I actually had the acronym Volusia to help, just because I believe in being able to spit that out, just like Bethune. Our core beliefs is faith. And then we build from faith. What is F? What is A? What is I? Faith. Everybody said, what's your core belief? We believe in faith, period. And so, again, I do like simplicity, but I like what you have, but I think you said it well, Ms. Cuthbert, so we won't go back to that. What was there another slide? I think now we're going to talk about where we go from here.
Yeah, so the only other slide, the goals and outcome metrics, I think here, just making sure there's no clarifying questions. I think this work is owned by the goal teams. But if you have clarifying questions about something that doesn't make sense or something you're expecting to see here that you don't, certainly open to that. But then otherwise, we'll just talk a little bit about where we go from here.
Ms. Chair?
Go right ahead.
What stakeholder engagement did you guys have to come up with these metrics?
Yeah. So it's a great question. So they came from a couple of sources. One is, if you recall, we did a survey of staff that was open to all staff prior to sort of kicking off the strategic planning work, as well as the focus groups that Dr. Fritz held, and we held some as well when we were down there. So we pulled some of this from those sources, and then we did a large workshop with, gosh, wish I could remember exactly how many staff it was, but somewhere in the range of 35 to 40 staff, district level staff, to generate these ideas as part of our initial set of ideas. And then next week, or is it the following week? My weeks are all running together. We'll be meeting with a team of principals from the elementary, middle, and high to share this sort of straw person with them and get some of their feedback as well. So at this point, that's why they still say draft. They're still in draft form. The input has been provided from a number of places, but we're also going to continue to refine them with ongoing involvement by district level folks, and then as well as some school level leaders.
Okay, can you go to the next slide really quick? So this really falls more into the how for Dr. Fritz versus the what. Really, by our mission, vision is what we're saying, sort of direction per se, and then this is the how. Am I seeing that correctly? So it's more, this is more operational.
That's right. This is still a definition of the what, but it's a more specific what, right? Because the vision is lofty and empowering, but it's not very specific and measurable. So the goals are an attempt to make the what a little bit more specific. And then the how will actually be even one level below this, will be the strategies that describe how. So it's a little bit of, it's still the what, but it's, to your point, it's a little bit more granular and operational than the vision, mission, and core beliefs.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other comments, colleagues? Okay. Hearing none, we want to thank you very much. And I sent you an email that once you revise that vision and mission statement, can you send this presentation to us so that we can, each of us can go through it, make notes, and maybe send them back to you all and to Dr. Fritz?
Absolutely. Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Yep. So the very last slide then, Erin, if you'll just go to the very last slide, just to give you a sense of where we're headed. We are going to take your feedback, as Ms. Wright just said, and refine the vision, mission, core beliefs based on your feedback. We're going to continue working on refining the outcome metrics and getting input and feedback from other stakeholders. And then we actually are working with teams this week. We have a series of workshops with each of these goal teams to continue working on it, thinking about barriers and potential strategies. What are we going to do differently over the course of the next 3 years? And so we'll share more about what comes out of these conversations with you in May, as that becomes more, as it sort of goes beyond the emerging phase. But we are really digging into the work. And as I said, I'm really grateful for the chance to work with such a wonderful team, and a team that remains committed to carving out real strategic thinking time despite all of the chaos of the day-to-day right now. And I'm just excited to see how we get to accomplish that vision and mission over the next couple of years. So thanks very much for your feedback. This has been very helpful, and appreciate, again, your engagement in a virtual setting as well.
Yes,
thank
you.
you
All.
Thank you.
Thank you, and remain safe, please.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair, would you indulge me and just go back to that core belief slide? Can you get them to do that?
Yes. I was just going to ask Ms. Lee.
Yeah.
No, you went too far back.
A couple of more. There we go. There we go. We were kind of like struggling. I agree with everything that Ms. Cuthbert said, and Ruben and everyone on this. I was just thinking on that third bullet, that's the one that we were talking about being transparent. And I was thinking maybe something as simple as we believe in being honest, open, and transparency.
That sounds good.
Open, honest, and transparency.
Transparent. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So that stands for hot.
You picked up on that. You are
Yes,
quick,
I
Madam
did.
Chair.
Yes, I did. Thank you. So yeah, and she'll email it to, because I think we should start thinking along those lines. But yeah, that's a good one. I do like that. Okay. Any other comments, colleagues? Okay. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you, Corey. I hope you all stay safe. Dr. Fritz, anything you would like to add?
Nope. Thank you very much, Corey and Julia. And again, board, we will be bringing this back to you as we get finalized with the actual goals and strategies, and be sharing with you quite a bit over the summer so that we can take this plan and we can take it out into the community. That's one thing I can tell you, that with all the community events that I've attended prior to this pandemic occurring, is they want to know the plan. And I do believe there are people out there that want to support us in many ways, but they want to know that we have a plan for it. And that's why this is so critically important for us right now. There was wonderful work going on all the time in Volusia County, but I don't know that we were quite corralled enough that we had a plan to drive that work and held ourselves accountable. And this will be the way we do that.
Thank you, Dr. Fritz. If nothing else, we'll move on to item 17.02, Osceola Ortona. Dr. Fritz?
Yes, at the last board meeting, the board gave us some direction and asked us to go back and survey not only the communities of Osceola Ortona, but also the employees, and to ask them some questions regarding the format of school that they would like to have with this consolidation. Would they want a traditional K-5 or would they prefer a K-8? And we were able to gather those survey results. Mr. Aiken sent those results to you. I'm going to ask Mr. Grube and Mr. Aiken to turn their cameras on and be able to review those results once again with the board. And our purpose today is to get some direction from the board on next steps where it is you want us to go. So Mr. Grube.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Fritz, thank you. As Dr. Fritz mentioned, we conducted an electronic survey last week. This was done through SurveyMonkey, and it was surveying the Osceola Elementary, the Ortona Elementary communities, including neighbors, teachers, and interested employees. The results of those surveys, do we have the slides available?
No, we just sent them. They should have those. So just kind of go over it.
Let me summarize
and then the results. Yeah.
Okay, very good. The first question was, are you a parent of a student at Ortona or Osceola Elementary, an employee of Volusia County Schools, or a neighbor to either Ortona or Osceola? The results of that were about 53% of the respondents were parents, roughly 20% were employees, and 27% were neighbors. The second question that was asked, are you a parent of a student at Ortona or Osceola? Excuse me, I got the wrong question. I'm reading the first one again. Let me get back to that. The second one, based on your answer above, which school is most relevant to you? 36% answered Ortona and 64% answered Osceola. The third question was specific to the type of program school that would be constructed. The school district is evaluating options to consolidate these two schools. The consolidation would be accomplished by building a new school on either the Ortona or Osceola property. The board is considering a new approximate 750 student two-story K-5 school, or a new approximately 1,125 student three-story K-8 school. Which school would you prefer be built? And the survey said about 66% preferred a K-5 and 34% responded with a K-8. The fourth question was a little open-ended. It was any other information you would like for us to know regarding the proposed consolidation. There were 150 people that responded to that question, and 194 responded only to the first three and didn't really provide any additional comments. Most of those responding were parents in the 90% range, and a lot of those preferred a K-5, and that was especially in the Osceola district. The Ortona respondents, again, mostly parents responding, and their preference was actually leaning towards the K-8. Those actual comments were provided to you in two separate Word documents for you to read. Some were quite short and succinct, and some of them were quite lengthy and involved and passionate. So that's basically the results of the survey. And if you have any questions or comments, I'll turn it over to the board.
Thank you. So colleagues, and I did look at the results, and so you could tell the parents from Ortona and the parents from Osceola. So when we saw that, that was rather obvious. So colleagues, I'll start with Mr. Persis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I guess I would say the survey results are not a surprise. They kind of went the way that you may have guessed, at least the way I would have guessed. But there are a number of extenuating factors, and this isn't to blame anybody or take anything away from any parent's comment. But the fact is that when the district rolled this out, beginning in December of 2019, and had 2 meetings with staff, and then 2 meetings again in January with SAC committees, and then 2 meetings again in February with parent community meetings involving neighbors. A K-8 option was never presented. Those that asked about it were quickly told that there's not enough space to build a K-8. So all the discussion from all of those meetings only centered around, do we build it on an occupied campus or an unoccupied campus, the pros and cons of doing that, and then the pros and cons in doing that at the Ortona site or the Osceola site. So that's where questions from the public came about how do you build a school on an occupied site, and what are the pros and cons, and how many portables would be pushed to the other site. Had there been an opportunity for the staff and the parents and the neighbors to see a K-8 school and to have answered their questions during the 3 months prior to this, a lot of the concerns that parents have, and those are legitimate concerns, because their chances are they never attended a K-8 school as a parent, as a student, and that their children probably have never attended a K-8 school. So those fears that you have and the concerns are understandable. I get it. Also, the survey option said the K-8 would be 1,125 students. We could not have a K-8 with that many students in order for it to really function, as we learned, and I believe Steve would support me on this, after our visit to Audubon Park School. The principal was very clear about the fact that this would become a very popular school, and parents are going to love if you build a K-8 school, and you're going to have many parents trying to get in to your K-8 school. But you have to, through zoning, you have to keep it to your Ortona elementary students and to your Osceola elementary students, and you want the middle school in enrollment, to be around 350 students, and not to get much larger than that. So I think realistically, if we built a K-8, Madam Chair, in this area for the Ortona, Osceola populations, this school would likely open up with under 1,000 students, which would be, according to the principal at Audubon Park, a very nice size school, a very manageable school. So the fact that 64% said they wanted a K-5 and 36% wanted the K-8, well, that, Madam Chair, correct me if I'm wrong, but that appears to mirror the exact differences in the population of the Ortona school being about 34 to 36%, and the Osceola school being almost, well, twice as large. So it's just not a surprise. And as you and I know, Madam Chair, because we represent both these schools, we have heard the comments from the Ortona folks, what they would prefer, and so that did not surprise me. So I can understand it, but I still think that had all the parents received answers to their questions about K-8, and we could have had a really question and answer period the way we did the K-5 with occupied and unoccupied, which is, as you will note, Madam Chair, the options that were presented to us at our last school board meeting, the district staff took off the table building on an occupied site. I mean, that we never even heard that presentation, and yet that presentation was presented at all of the other meetings. So I just think that it is important to get the input from the parents. It is important to recognize what they are concerned about. However, I feel like if Volusia County built this K-8 and built it in a way, and Steve, I'll let you weigh in a little bit if I'm out of bounds here, and Jamie Haynes was there and Ruben Cologne was there, but golly, I just left that Audubon Park School site driving home saying, wow, this would be so awesome if we could do something like this for our Ortona and our Osceola families. They would just love it. But because of the virus, we're just not able to have that, Madam Chair, and I'm just struggling with it. I don't know how you feel, but I just had to share my thoughts on it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. I would like to hear from those who traveled to the school. Unfortunately, Dr. Fritz and I were on some calls that day, but Ms. Haynes, would you like to, or Mr. Cologne or Mr. Group, one of you would like to jump in?
Go ahead, Ms. Haynes.
Okay, so I'll jump in. I'd first like to start off with, I need the Osceola and Ortona, parents, neighbors, and employees to understand that the only discussion we had as a board prior to the last board meeting was, when we were talking about the half-cent sales tax and we were talking about the need due to hurricane damage, at Osceola, that we needed to move forward with, making a decision there to improve the setting and the school that the kids are in. And it was only at that board meeting that the K-8 idea was tossed out. And I want to say from that point on, myself as a board member, I was not made aware of when the meetings were happening at Ortona and Osceola. I actually found out from someone that works at the schools that these meetings were taking place. So we did not know what was being shared at those meetings or what was being discussed. So finding out after last time's board meeting that, a K-8 was never discussed, when we did bring that up as a board, and starting to hear from people that they were upset about it, was really a surprise to me, because we had thrown out the K-8 idea and then we were not, as I said, informed, invited, nor did I participate in those meetings. And had I participated, I would have had a better understanding why individuals were upset after the last board meeting. But moving beyond that, I found the data from the surveys very interesting. But the best part is Mr. Grube, Mr. Cologne, Mr. Persis, and myself, along with a few others, We went to Audubon Park last Friday, and the principal and assistant principal there were very gracious hosts. Not only did they show us through every aspect of that K-8 building, they answered any question we threw at them. Now, I have some K-8 experience in my background because I originally interned years ago in K-8 settings. I lived in a place and went to a university where they built K-8 schools. I always had great experiences, and I brought that experience with me. So I was a little surprised by some of the comments of people, worrying about what the middle schoolers are going to say to younger kids. Here's my thing. What I know about K-8, and this is what we asked them a lot about, these are family schools. Kids come in and start, and as they leave 5th grade and transition to 6th grade, or even as they transition from 2nd to 3rd or 7th to 8th, they've got their siblings on campus. And every question that we asked the principal and assistant principal at Audubon Park about, and we asked about behaviors of middle schoolers and words, they reminded and stated things that I knew from my past. They said, little people tell on their big brothers and sisters if they do something wrong. And so every question we threw at them, they just kind of looked at us and shrugged their shoulders, and they said, we don't have those issues with our middle school kids because this is a family, community-oriented school. They come in and they stay with us until they exit 8th grade. And in Orange County, that's a model that they've been promoting for a very long time. I will tell you, as I parked and stepped out of my car, if I had just stepped out into the street and walked just right across the street, I could have touched every house surrounding that school. As we came out of the gymnasium, if you came out the back door, you could walk right to the fence, and there were all these homes right there. And we asked about what the neighbors thought and everything. And they said, we're supported by our community where this school is setting. But beyond that, the facility itself was so well thought out. They have kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade on the main floor, 3rd, 4th, and 5th on the 2nd floor, and 6th, 7th, and 8th on the 3rd floor. And I have to tell you, having taught at all different levels, and science was not my thing, math was, but I'd almost be convinced to turn into a science teacher, because the science labs on the 3rd level for middle school, each 6th grade science teacher, the 7th and the 8th, all have their own beautiful classrooms with, everything you could imagine. But beyond that, when we even went down and saw the area where you would call it like your electives or special areas, I was so impressed with the room for the choir and the orchestra. They thought out everything. They thought out how you would come out of there and go straight onto the back part of the stage to do a presentation. They shared with us how they run their lunches. They run their K-5 lunch the same way we run ours, with that 2 to 3 minute span between each one. Then as soon as 5th grade exits, they bring 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in. And he talked about it's all in the numbers. It's how many kids you have. And they've got these great rooms on each level where the older kids can come down and do, STEM activities with the younger kids. They can read to the younger students. And so they build a community and a relationship. And that's what my experience had always been with what I had dealt with over the years with K-8. So I understand it's a change in mindset. I just wish we could load some people up on a bus and let them go down and see it for themselves, and also hear from the administrative and or teacher teams there. But it was beautiful. It flowed. It made sense. And they had no reason not to answer our questions, honestly. So, I want to thank Mr. Grube and everyone for setting up that opportunity for us. And I took lots of pictures, including panoramics, so you could see from one side of a room to the other. But I felt that it was a great experience. And going back to our survey data, Ortona's survey data is for a K-8. Osceola's survey data is not for a K-8. And you have to then wonder why. Why were the parents and neighbors and the one community so for it? And I read their comments, and some of them said, I want to see my kids stay here in this area all the way before they go to high school. And then the other group was against it. But, you know, having not been involved from the start and not realizing that K-8 was never discussed, maybe shame on us for that part. But it was a phenomenal field trip, and I appreciate having the opportunity to go. Thank you, Mrs. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Cologne or Mr. Group.
So I'll echo a lot of what Ms. Hain has said. And, you know, the reality is, and I think Carl hit it on the head, is we never presented the information in a like manner. For example, we were told, well, it may not fit on that piece of land. Yet we went to a property that was similar in size, and they had this beautiful school with fields that we could only dream of at an elementary and at some middle schools, only to realize it's about the same size property as the property we have. So where we may have been, you know, it may have been said, well, oh, that would be difficult, and we took it off the table, we then didn't communicate it to the families to get a fair shake on the idea. I asked the question of the principal, you know, tell me about when the little kids hear things that the big kids say, because I know a lot of parents had those concerns. And they said, you know, really, the kids really don't touch because they're each in their level. The middle school lives upstairs. They pass each other, but a lot of them are brothers. It's a non-issue. When you look at the gym, they had a beautiful gym. Well, no elementary school has a gym. And so there were a lot of things. So I don't know how to say that our problem is that we probably need to start from square one again, which is where, and I know that's going to make some folks swallow deeply, but we really have not presented both options. And so what you're going to get is a reactive response rather than a active response where folks are able to get like information and make a decision that way. So you end up with a reactive response, which is very hard to overcome. I don't know how we start from square one, because the reality is that, you know, we were told it may not fit. Well, guess what? It will, you know, and not only will it fit, but the demand on the school on the beach side would actually be less than the one that they had over there. So it really would fit. And so it almost, again, it's a whole mindset of a shift. And so I think that the parents deserve to hear that information in a more, I don't know how to say this, so that they can make a fair shake at what would be best for their community. I don't think that, you know, I think that, you know, some folks had some opinions and they shared them. And I could go back to I mean, I have some folks that I just want to call the principal and say, hey, can I bring these 3 parents with me so they could see how beautiful this is, just like Carl said. And I think that would make a difference for them. But that would be really going back to square one. And, you know, it goes back to, you know, getting an honest response on whether it will fit. You know, we don't know, because we were told it'd be very difficult. Well, guess what? We saw it. It fits. You know, and so I don't know how we get back to that square one so that people can give an objective opinion rather than a reactive opinion. That's my thought.
Thank you, Mr. Groove.
Well, those are great comments, and they're all very valid. It was a very good trip. It was very eye-opening. Of course, with the school was closed down from students, so it was spit polished and it still had that new school smell to it. It's only 2 years old. They faced some challenges there as well on that site. It was not an easy fit. And I think I would simply say that a K-8's not a one size fits all. That building doesn't have to be, like Mr. Persis said, doesn't have to be 1,100 plus students. It has to fit the neighborhood and it has to fit the community, and the community has to embrace it, and it has to provide the correct instructional programs to support that community. Those haven't really been defined yet as far as a K-8 goes. We would be going back to square one if it's a K-8 anyway, just to start program verification of what's going to go in there. And the school at the end of the day may not be sized exactly the same as Audubon Park. It would have to be sized properly to fit that community and the needs of the community. There are some challenges on both sites. We laid that out for you, I think, last time as far as bricks and mortar goes and the way the site goes. I won't say we're on the clock, but I'll say that time is of the essence to make a decision so that we can start programming a K-8 if we need to, or if we're going to be building a K-5, we need to get to the next level of design. The schedule we laid out last time showed a 2022 opening for the K through 5, potentially into 2023 for a K-8. Those are still valid, but we certainly don't want to push it out any further. So I guess that's my input at this point.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Cologne.
And again, you know, like Mr. Grube said, we haven't even come up with what the program would be. So we've asked our community to provide feedback on something we haven't even given them information on. So, you know, because we haven't had those K-8 discussions. And just like Miss Haynes said, you know, I remember Carl mentioning it in our December meeting, and I was like, oh wow, where'd that come from? You know, because that's a big deal. Anytime you talk about rezoning, consolidating, and all of that. And so again, going back to what Mr. Group said, we haven't even presented to the community what this school would look like, other than we're going to take what you understand as a middle school and what you understand as an elementary, and we're going to do this to it. So that's it. Sorry.
Oh no, you don't have to apologize. Ms. Cuthbert, I know you were unable to attend.
No, I wasn't. I still trying to self-quarantine. How large is the Audubon site? What's the acreage? And how is it shaped?
I'll go ahead and,
He doesn't have his mic on.
I was muted. I apologize. Ms. Haynes, if you'd like to go ahead, I won't interrupt.
Well, you can tag on after I say this. So, Ms. Cuthbert, I looked at that, you know, because we actually kind of walked outside the whole facility also, and I was keeping in mind the shape of the other two properties. I would say it's more similar to Ortona, but not exactly as Ortona. Now, it has a feature that I don't believe will fit on either one of our sites, and that is a track. It has a running track, okay? But we basically don't build middle schools with running tracks anymore. It did have some property. It had parts of the property that could still have been utilized for, like, it had a beautiful playground and things like that. But, you know, it had a little bit more property. They did do their, you know, the retention piece was underground, which is what we were having to look at to put the water retention underground. But it never felt closed in or crowded, because when you left the one building and went over to the gymnasium, which was a covered walkway, which, by the way, they also had a whole baseball field too. I mean, they had some features that I'm not sure we would even be placing, because we're not putting them at our current middle schools that we're building. But, you know, you had a nice open feel, even though it was sitting right inside of homes. You still, you know, there was lots of green grass still, but that gymnasium was phenomenal. I think it's better than the gymnasiums we've actually put in middle schools, because we looked at it and it has the bleachers that pull out from both sides. You know, there's a lot of community events that you could, you know, hold in that. And like I go back to this, every bit of it was very well thought out. And they had a TV production news media room that I've only seen similar at high schools, and yet they had it in a K-8. And their media center was a lot larger than any of our media centers that we see being built in elementary. And the media center was just phenomenal also. But even when we visited the classrooms, you know, I looked at the space in those kindergarten, first and second grade rooms. I looked at the storage available and everything. And I asked a lot of questions about it, but it was similar, more similar to Ortona than the Osceola layout, because it really wasn't that L shape. It was just shaped more like Ortona. That's what I felt. But Steve can add anything. Now, I will bring this up. There was one feature that they had planned on putting there that they had been putting at their other, I don't know who's talking, at their other K-8s that they were unable to put on this one. And that is, at their other K-8s, they have put a parking garage. And they said, everybody loves the parking garage.
Just a minute, Ms. Haynes. Clint, can you mute everyone but Ms. Haynes, please?
Will do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hear somebody. Okay.
It's Ruben.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Haynes.
Okay, so Ms. Cuthbert, as I said, the one feature that they had in the original plans that they weren't able to do, and that was because they had a piece of the property that when they drilled down at one time, maybe back in the 60s, had been a sinkhole area, so they had to flip the design, is a parking garage, which they do add to all their other K-8s as they build them. And I really would have liked to have seen one of those K-8s also while we were down there, because that parking garage did interest me, I'll be honest with you, as a way for teachers to go back and forth to their vehicle and remain dry on our wonderful rainy days. But it was similar shape to Ortona, but Mr. Group can add any comments that he'd like at this time. Thank you.
Yeah, the size of the site is 13.2 acres. By comparison, Ortona is 11. And the Osceola site is about the same size, about a little over 13 acres. That baseball field is actually, it's a Little League field that it's joint use with the local Little League that's been there, established there for a long, long time. And if they had put a parking garage there, they would have shared that with some of the adjacent businesses that are right across the street, that they could use those after hours. So that was the intent. They do have athletics there, that was mentioned. The track is not shaped exactly like a competition track because they didn't have enough space for it, but they do have soccer, track, basketball, and volleyball. And the shape of it is more along the lines of Ortona, not exactly, but it's just it's a little bit bigger.
Okay, Ms. Cuthbert, did you have any more questions? Because
well, just how much did it cost to build?
30 million. 30 million. Here's the interesting thing. The architect that built the building, I didn't know that's who he was when he arrived that day, but he came and walked the building with us. And when we realized who he was, because he wanted to see now what the space looked like since it was being used, we asked, what did it cost? And he said 30 million.
Wow. Okay. I'm just thinking of how much we have available. There's a lot of information I think we need too, like how much money is available to us in this bond. What would happen, because we're supposed to use it within 3 years. What would happen if we postponed this a year to get more information? There's an awful lot of information I think we need. Is there 30 million? And could you put a school similar to this at Ortona, which has the more conducive shape?
it would be a good question to ask. And here's the thing about it. You know, when we asked him what it cost to build, he was honest and told us. And like I said, it's got features that I would have never even anticipated would be features that we could have, which was rather nice. But, you know, I think, and they opened in August of 2018. So when they opened this past fall in 2019, that was just going to be their second year of occupancy, which, you know, they're out right now like we are. But, and I will say this, I even went and stood back on the street and looked up, you know, like from a neighbor's point of view. I went across and stood on the sidewalk in front of a house, because a lot of the area there are older Florida style homes. They do have some new homes that have come in and like torn down one of the older Florida block homes and built some new ones. And I asked about all those neighborhood comments, and he said, no, the neighbors love it. They don't have any problem. You know, I've stood at Pearson and looked at the 2-story, and I stood there that day and looked at this, and there's not a large difference between the two when you stand and look at them. And he said the only thing the neighbors asked about that were along the back fence line where they have the soccer, the baseball, and the track, they just asked about the lights. And he said our lights are set so that they don't shine on their homes or anything. But he said they do shine on the fields, which then really provides more protection, you know, from the idea of their homes being broken into, because that area is lit up, you know, but it doesn't shine on their homes. It shines on the fields.
So, and I hear you, Ms. Cuthbert. I too would like to visit the school. I mean, I'm not solely K-8 or elementary. I'm just looking at what's the best use of our monies and what is the best use for the properties. And I would like to see the K-8. I really would. And I'm not sure if Ruben said it or Carl or both. Parents from both sides, especially those who are not in favor of a K-8, maybe to go over, maybe 3 from both schools, to go look at the school and then have input. Because I think it's easy to say what you don't want when you don't know what you potentially could have in your community, and talk to people within the area to say, hey, yes, maybe they didn't either, but now that it's there, they're very appreciative of the school being there. So.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think maybe some city commissioners from the Daytona area and the Ormond area should go. Maybe a couple of teachers, some PTA or SAC committee members should go. We should have some representation. Maybe the Daytona or is there an Ormond Chamber of Commerce, or is that part of the Daytona?
I believe Chamber. Am I correct, Carl?
But maybe have Mr. Cameron go with us.
Does have a Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, okay. Maybe a member from each of the Chamber of Commerces to go, and to have a group of representation so they can spread the word and get all of their views. I really would like to see it, because I'm still thinking, can we afford it in those small acreages, and what is our real need? I do have a concern about the K-8. I really do, and you all know that, about space and usage. But then I'm also a visual learner, so I would like to see it as well. But I think more people from the 2 neighborhoods, the neighborhood communities, the school communities need to see it as well, to have better input. And also, what's the impact if we put it off another year? Can we afford it? Because we're going to have to get another architect to come up with the design for that. And I don't think Jamie was very satisfied with the BRPH K-8 design as being so let's get more information. But I'm also concerned about the money. And I know our half-cent sales tax oversight committee was against a K-8. So I would like input from them as well. When they go over, they need to go too.
So there was a member.
Did I not see somebody from the oversight committee with you all on that photo?
Yes, there was somebody with us.
I thought people from the oversight committee.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And
I
if
don't
I'm
know
not
what
if
it's-
I'm not
it's-
mistaken, one of them or two of them were builders. Am I correct?
Mr. Patus was
I'm sorry, I
there,
thought I
Mr.
saw.
Patus was there.
and he is a builder. Yes.
Yeah, when
What did he say about it?
Well, he was just oohing and ahhing. You know, I mean, Miss Haynes was our official photographer. She took amazing photographs. I got to tell you, I just wish, Madam Chair, I wish you were there, Ms. Cuthbert. I wish you were there. Seeing it on a map, you know, I had my doubts too. And then when you go there and you walk it, it blow you away. I mean, it's so functional, and yet it's so aesthetically pleasing too. And just like Ms. Haynes said, and we have said, I believe, I mean, I want to give credit to our architects who went there. I say our architects, BRPH. Jeff and Megan both were there. They met the architect who built the school. They were not pushing back on anything. They were loving it too. They were marveling at, oh yeah, that's a great way. I love the way you did that. I love the way you did this. You know, I mean, they were probably noticing things that as school board members we didn't notice, but they were taking it all in. Megan, she was making notes, Jamie, and I think you and I saw her. I did want to ask Steve, because Steve was great and he was there the whole time too. But I didn't know, Steve, you had indicated that that there may be some new information concerning the Osceola school site, or is that not? Is it still coming in? I wasn't sure. You made reference to it.
Yeah, what you're referring to is the storm drain that bisects that site. That was a design constraint that we were looking at, and there have been ongoing conversations with the city and with the St. Johns River Water Management District as to if that drain line could possibly be relocated and what benefits that would bring to the project. We're still analyzing some of those things. We've had conversations just as recent as the other day with St. John's, trying to determine if they relocated that to the other side of the site, how would that benefit us? And we do know that from a footprint standpoint of the building, it would definitely help out. And it may also be sized big enough to carry some additional capacity off with it, but we would still have to provide some underground exfiltration on that site regardless. So that's being analyzed. And I think that I know that the city of Ormond Beach is heavily involved in that as well.
I was wondering, getting back to Ms. Haynes' point, that it seemed like the design on the Osceola site, because of that pipe, I guess, or that drain line, whatever it is, you know, that it did seem to interfere because it went right through the center. What I didn't know whether have you had any conversations with the architects? Are they aware of this? And then how would they redesign that school if they had just a blank slate?
Was that for me, Carl?
Yeah, for Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very aware of it, and they've been deeply involved in all of these conversations we've had with the city and with St. John's. Both Megan and Jeff and their civil team have been involved in these conversations, and they've done some conceptual designs showing what that site could potentially look like with that storm line as it sits, or if it were to be relocated. And at this point, they are just very conceptual. These are just really lines on a drawing right now. So the actual final product could very well take a different shape no matter which site it's on, based upon the program and you know, how things are going would best benefit the overall design. So but yeah, they're very much involved in that and understand the ramifications going either way.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I get back to what I guess I may have said a couple of times, and that is, I hope if we do the K-8, and I feel confident now after seeing one and seeing our architects embrace it, that they would know what we would want as a board, and I feel like we're not going to get another opportunity to have a middle school program on the beach side. I don't see us. Some parents said, "Well, Carl, why can't you build an elementary school on one site and a middle school on the other site?" And to build a middle school would cost about $50 million. So we can't be building an elementary on one site for 20, 25, and then build a middle school for 50. That wouldn't be the way to go. Plus the middle school would be so small. I don't know how cost efficient that would be to do. Parents have asked me, well, Carl, if you build whatever you build on one site, what's going to happen to the other site? Dr. Fritz has had a couple of comments about that, and I know he can speak for himself, but I think that is a concern. So, Madam Chair, maybe it would be good to hear if Dr. Fritz is able to weigh in on what is he thinking could go on the other site, whichever site that may end up to be.
Dr. Fritz?
Well, I think we would have to do some further study to figure out what the need is. But I mentioned at the last board meeting that there's a strong desire for us to increase our VPK presence. So potentially one of those sites could be in the Early Learning Center. Orange County actually has another model for that I would be happy to arrange a visit if you'd like to see. The Richmond Height Early Learning Center. I actually opened that center, so I'm very familiar with it. It's another option. And so, we would have to examine what the need was before I would want to commit. But both of those sites are already elementary schools. So when you look at the amount of retrofit that you would have to do, it would be less for something like an early learning center than it would be to try to turn it into something else. But I think we would have to seriously analyze some of our options. I'll say this, I've had lots and lots of experiences with K-8s over the years. There's certainly benefits. The benefit with the amount of transition that children and families go through is real. Rather than going from a entry into elementary and then having to do it again in middle and then having to do it again in high school, you just go from that elementary, middle school experience all in one, and then you go to a high school. So your transition is cut down by one. But what I was going to say, it seems like there's a strong desire for the board to get more information out to the families. If that's a direction, that's something that we can use. If you'd like us to arrange for more community input, more meetings regarding these K-8s, to arrange for some travel and some visits to Audubon Park or other K-8s, we can certainly do that.
I believe, and I don't want to make this go longer than necessary, but I do believe it would be helpful if we did. And one of my concerns, I do represent Ortona, and it appears that my families at Ortona truly favored all the positive for K-8 came from the Ortona school versus that of Osceola. So when you look at the 66%, that is not representative of the parents of Ortona. That is representative of the parents of Osceola and the teachers and the community that voted. But when you go look at the data from Ortona, they are very well appreciative, or they are very in favor of having a K-8. And so where we have that kind of discussion. If we decide to do that, then we do have to look at, okay, well, which community is going to be more inviting, that if we do go with a K-8. And to be fair to both sides, again, I would like to see a couple of the parents, especially the ones who are against the K-8 from Osceola Elementary School, to go and visit the school. And if they still feel that way, fine. And again, have Ortona go and have a group of them go. And we may have to limit, because of social distancing, maybe having 2 trips, because we don't want more than 10 people in a place. But how many was on your trip? Was it 10, Carl?
We had less than 10. There were, we had Steve, the 3 board members, that's 4, 2 architects from our side, another architect from their side, 7, the principal, 8, and then we were joined later by the assistant principal. So we had 9. At the max, there was 9 people there. Yeah.
And so maybe if we can get 3 from both, and I'll be more than happy to go and meet the principal and assistant principal. And I know Ms. Cuthbert would like to go, and maybe have some representatives from both the city of Daytona and the city of Ormond go with you, and then just come back and let's hash this out, because putting it off a year, I don't think that would be fair to anyone. I think we do have to move. And so if you just can indulge us and maybe make arrangements for us to go during the month of May, that would be great. And we can reach out to both chambers, both mayors, and I'll contact Mayor Henry, if you would contact the mayor of Ormond, and maybe see if we can get 2 people from there, a person from the chamber, and you, Ms. Cuthbert, so 6 to go over and look at the school. And I think maybe by our last meeting in May, just revisit this and kind of come up with some final decisions. What is everybody's thoughts?
Madam Chair, may I speak? I also would like to know about the cost, because we have Deltona Middle coming up, and I'd like to know how much money we have to work with, and the reality of the time. I just want to root all of this in what we can afford in time, in manpower, and especially in cost. Because $100 million is what we bonded. How much of that have we used or is already scheduled? I mean, and I know Sarah Lee's not here to let us know, has it been sectioned all to pieces? I do know a K through 5 here in either site was going to be around 22, 23 million. If we add another 10 or 15 to it, do we have the ability to do that? Do we have the feasibility? Do the sites, the permeability, the soil permeability, are the neighborhoods conducive to all of this? I just want to make sure. I know Audubon is probably a fantastic school in its site, but what about in our site? I just want to make sure that it's cost effective, we have the acreage, but and also that we don't short the building of George Marks, the building of Deltona Middle either, or anything else we have plans for, because we still haven't rebuilt Tomoka yet. Carl, you've been asking for Tomoka. It was on the original 5.
Yes, I have. And, but you know, we have spent a lot of time on this project, and we have gotten the faculties excited and the parents, and they believe something is going to be forthcoming. I mean, even if we made a decision on May the 12th, likelihood is they're not going to have any children going to the school till August of 2023. So it's still a long way off as far as affecting parents who are currently at the school now. Some of those parents won't even have children there by the time the school opens. So you know, we'll just have to wait wait and see. But I was going to say, Madam Chair, if at all possible, if you all could make your visit to Audubon before May the 12th, that would be helpful. I think it'd be helpful to the school district to perhaps, because I'm sure they would like to know something on May the 12th, like, is this a go? Is it not a go? I mean, is it a K-8? Is it a K-5? I mean, just the fact if we say we want a K-8, that gives them some direction, even though they don't know right now where we want it, perhaps. But I think they want as much time as possible for their planning. That's all. But I do think it's important, and I love the idea. I love the idea for you two to go, for Ms. Cuthbert and Ms. Wright to go. Those are the two people that I really want to see it. But if we could get, like you said, Madam Chair, a PTA president from each group, or the SAC chair, or whoever the principal may think too is, been really involved at their schools. And, I would like to see someone that, probably is not so much a 5th grade parent, but maybe some parents who are, around 2nd grade or something like that. So that they can be there and they can enjoy this new school. That's what I would love to see.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Dr. Fritz.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to ask Steve a question, because I want to honor what Ms. Cuthbert said. She talked about the money. Steve, I want to know when we could get the board a good estimate that we feel confident in for this K-8.
I think we could, well, we've already done some bracketing on it. It's high level budgeting at this point. And that was based upon some of the numbers that we've been looking at in terms of traditional size and of the school. We presented those to the board last week. I think that we would need to know a little bit more in terms of which site is preferable, because there are some changes to the site costs. I would think that by the next board meeting, we should be able to look at some refined pricing for you if we had some, at the same time, maybe get some direction as to where it is you want to go. It's a difficult question to answer, obviously, at this point, because we're looking at it from 25,000 feet. So.
I do recognize that, but
Yeah.
I guess that was also some of the point I wanted to make. As we go forward on this, we're going to get a general dollar amount,
Right.
but we will not be able to be exact until we have a CM and really start going down that road, selecting the architectural design and everything else. So just a factor to consider as we go forward with this K-8. There's a lot of moving pieces.
Right. Yes, sir.
So,
Okay.
Mrs. Wright, I have a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, Mr. Grube, are we already locked into the architects that went down there with us? Like, have we already made some form of a commitment to them? And if so, I apologize, because I guess I missed it. Or is it still open for a choice in architect and plan?
Well, we have a contract with the architect at this point, and our preference would be, from our standpoint, would be to proceed with them, based upon the direction that we're given. They're very deeply involved, entrenched, and understand the issues. My concern would be if we were to go back and re-advertise for architect services, that would set us back. The learning curve would be extremely steep for the time frame we're looking at. I think that they're committed to us and are deeply, like I said, involved and understand the issues, and are willing to take this forward with us, whichever direction we want to go. It would be our preference to stay with the design team and to try to bring a construction manager on board as soon as possible. And that's where we're going to be able to drill down on those costs and from a construction standpoint and from a site standpoint, and get much better idea of what the cost implications are.
Okay, thank you for answering that, because I will say that, they took a lot of pictures, they counted ceiling tiles, they made a lot of notes. So I just wasn't sure where we were at with that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And Madam Chair, Mr. Group, what we also need answers from is from the city of Ormond. Are they going to assist us with that drainage or the utilities that are underneath? And also the report from the St. John's. And what's the cost of putting drainage underground? Because that's something, I don't think we've ever done that before.
Well, a two-part question, or maybe a three-part question. My understanding is the city of Ormond Beach at their board meeting tonight is presenting a letter of interest that they would support us in this effort. That was part of the talks that we had with them earlier this week and last week. And we got into more technical details, got into the dirt, if you will, as to exactly how that might be accomplished. But they are committed, my understanding is, to supporting the project. So I think that they're presenting a letter of support that they would contribute maybe to relocating that line if it's in the best interest of the project. As far as the cost for an underground exfiltration system, that's built into our initial costs that we have right now and as we budgeted the project, because we know that that's going to have to happen. The city has not done, the county has not done that before. It was done at Audubon Park. They put it underneath their soccer field at the track. They have it on that site as well. It's going to be something that's going to, either site, whichever one is chosen, that is going to have to be part of the solution, because there's simply not enough, there's not enough land to accommodate surface retention, and there's not enough capacity to take everything underground and run it off. So there will have to be something like that there.
Okay, because one thing I really don't want, I don't want those middle school students to be lacking anything that they deserve. I don't want them to have anything less than any other middle school has.
Understood.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so I think for now, the request will be, if you can, Superintendent Fritz, Mr. Group, make arrangements for both Linda and I to go over with two different teams to look at the school and come back and be able to go ahead and make a decision if we want to, again, go K-8 or elementary through 5th. And if that's the case, kind of decide which site, because I think we got to move past this.
Are you asking for two separate trips, or are you going to try to?
Please.
Okay.
Because we want to take two different constituent groups. And so I'll go with the parents and some teachers from each school, and Ms. Cuthbert will go with all the dignitaries, with both mayors or their representative and chamber members.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll make this offer. If you can't fit everybody in two groups, I'll be happy to host a third.
Well, good. You'll be a good chauffeur.
Listen, I'd be happy to go back and check it out again. It was wonderful.
Okay. So that is where we are, Dr. Fritz. And then if we can get that done, we can put this back on the agenda on May 12th.
Will do.
Okay, and if we can't, if we could just get it done in May, that'll be perfect, because I don't know their schedule. If we can, fine. If not, if we can get it done in May, so then at least it'll be on the one of May's agendas.
We'll shoot for the 12th.
Okay. Any other questions about Osceola or Tona? Okay.
I just, Madam Chair.
Sure.
And so I want to just for the record say that I've had folks from the municipality of Daytona also support this project. And so I think, I don't know that we've put it out to either group to really support or not support. And so I think obviously they're both going to be supportive of having the new school in their district. And so maybe letting them know as well that we will be discussing this so that they could have a fair shake at expressing their support.
Will do. Thank you so much. All righty. We will move on to item 18.01. Who would like to start off? Ms. Haynes, I see your face Anything for the greater good before we adjourn our meeting today?
That's right.
Yes, I'm
It's
sorry.
Kelly Schultz. I'm sorry, we have a public participation.
You are absolutely correct, Mrs. Schultz. Do we have anyone waiting to join the meeting?
We do. We have Miss Elizabeth Albert.
Okay, you can put Miss Albert through, please, ma'am.
Good evening again, Mrs. Wright.
Good evening, Miss Albert.
Okay, so Elizabeth Albert again, and I would like to address you at this moment in the meeting about 2 hours later, not as the president of VIEW, proud president, but as a former city commissioner of the great city of Holly Hill. As I sat through the conversation that you just had regarding the potential of a K-8 on the beach side, I just couldn't help but wonder why there was no conversation about Holly Hill. Because would you believe we actually have a K-8 in Volusia County, and it sits right in Holly Hill. When we talk about the benefits of the K-8, we can see that in our own backyard. And I did a quick Google search while the conversation was occurring, and I noticed that at least from my house, Audubon Park is 58 miles away. That's over an hour's drive away. So I just wondered to myself, why are we driving one way over an hour and then driving another hour back to go visit a K-8 when we have one in our own community? We have 4 former principals of a K-8 who still work for our wonderful Volusia County schools who could provide details about what it's like to be a principal over really 2 schools in one. We have a community who could provide feedback, parents who bring their children in. Actually, in Holly Hill, it's a pre-K through 8, so better still. We have parents that drop their kids off at 4 and they stay until they're what, gosh, 14, 15. And so they can give you all of that information. What I know about the beautiful Holly Hill K-8 though is I don't believe it's ever been marketed appropriately. I know the municipality has always wanted to engage and support and do everything in their power to make that community school, our neighborhood school, the best it could be. But why do we not support what we already have? We have a fantastic system in place in my little city. It's never been supported appropriately. I would reckon to say probably not funded the way it needs to be for 2 schools in one, in a marginalized community, no less. And I just wonder why we're having all this conversation about Audubon Park, which I'm sure is great, when we haven't even looked in our own backyard rather. So just wanted to add that in. So I know that there are other former teachers from Holly Hill that are listening. So thank you.
But Miss Albert.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want you to hang up because I am going to address that one. Normally we don't, but I'm going to address that one because back in October and November when we had the discussion, we talked about Holly Hill. When this conversation started in December about potentially looking at a K-8, it was the size. It was not that we were not interested in Holly Hill. We were trying to find a K-8 that was on a very narrow lot. So when we start searching, Holly Hill is much larger than 11 acres. We had to look at something between 11 and 13 acres because those were the 2 sites. So it was not so much about the school and the running the school. We want to see were there any K-8s built on a small acreage. And that is where Audubon came from. So that was the conversation. You're right. We could talk to the principals and the parents and all of that for when we start looking at designing programs for the school. But the purpose, when the very first conversation, and I would go back and listen to the minutes, but I do believe it was in December, if not October, about the K. We wasn't sure even if a K could go on any one of either of the sites because of how small both of the sites were.
Well, thank you for that clarification, Ms. Wright. I appreciate that, and I apologize if I did not recognize the facility component, but I would take you up on your offer to speak to the municipality and the parents and the community, because I think you can get all that information right here in Volusia County.
I agree. Thank you.
May I address that as well with Mrs. Albert and you, Mrs. Wright?
Sure.
Oh, Mr. Henry, the mayor of Daytona, is also an assistant principal at Holly Hill. So
You
if
got
we
that
can
right.
get him, if we can get him to go, I would love to hear what he has to say and put his 2 cents in to say, well, if you want to do this on the beach side, either side, well, then what are you going to do for Holly Hill? Okay, so I would be, I think that conversation needs to happen.
I have talked to the mayor. I have talked to the mayor. And again, what I'm saying to Elizabeth is the same thing I said to him. Our initial discussion was simply about the size of the lot. And was it feasible or was there opportunity? So it was never about not looking at Holly Hill, because I talked to Derek personally. It was strictly about, is there K-8 on a very small piece of property, such as Ortona or Osceola size, because those all are smaller schools. Most of our middle schools sit on 20 plus acres, not on 11 or 13. But thank you. Thank you, Ms. Albert, for holding on for me. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you too.
All righty. Ms. Schultz, do we have anybody else? I'm sorry.
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you. So we're at 18.1, I believe, closing comments for school board members, superintendent, school board attorney. And I think I was starting with Ms. Haynes. It's on you, Ms. Haynes.
I'm here. I was trying to unmute. Sometimes the mouse just doesn't want to go there. Okay, so, there's been a lot of things that we've talked about tonight, but in closing, what I'd like to say is thank you. I want to thank everyone, every member that works as a part of our team here in Volusia County Schools that has gone above and beyond. I want to thank the teachers that I'm hearing such positive things. I try to, send positive comments and notes that we get over to principals and teachers, just showing them that how much people care. I want to thank, everyone that is out there, that is living through this pandemic each day with each one of us, and is putting our students and our children first, whether in feeding them, checking on them. Those of you that are reaching out and checking on parents and kids, my heart is with each and every one of you, because you don't realize the difference that you're making. And administrators, those of you that are reaching out and checking on your staff, it's been so nice in the last week and this week to get phone calls from teachers that have said to me, my assistant principal called to check on me, or my principal called to find out how I was doing. And this is what it's all about. In a time of struggle or in a time of crisis, it's how we step up and how we care for each other. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that has stepped up and is caring for our kids, our staff, and our community. And I'm going to put one more plug in tonight. If you have not yet gone to the Facebook page to adopt a senior, or you have a senior or know of a senior out there that they have not been, their story has not been shared on that page yet so that someone could adopt them, I'm encouraging you to go out and adopt. I had given myself a limit, and I crossed over my limit of how many I was adopting, because one more popped up, and I had taught his sister years ago, and I read his story and it touched my heart, and I was like, I can add one more to my adoptee list. But it's just reading those stories. So go check out the Facebook page that Mrs. Stacy Tremont set up, and let's all rally around our seniors at this time and show them how thankful we are for every one of them, and just celebrate all of the accomplishments and the wonderful things that lots of them have overcome to reach this point. Because They deserve this. But thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cologne?
All right, so interesting fact. So I recorded my video, which everyone will see in the coming days, at Enterprise Elementary just recently. And the reason I did that was I thought about a school that was actually here when the Spanish flu happened in 1918. And so I researched it, and I ran into an article that was written in the News Journal by Mark Lane. And just for a little history, Enterprise is 132 years old. Okay, and a little bit over 100 years ago, we went through the Spanish flu. The school was built, I believe, 1917, and the Spanish flu was 1819. So I thought about, those teachers went through what we're going through right now. And ironically, I went on to read the article, and it says the last time a pandemic that had people wearing face masks was during 1918, 1919. The pandemic was called the Spanish flu, and it went on and it goes on. It says schools were closed, church services suspended, and meetings were canceled. Then it goes on to say Volusia County schools were ordered closed from October 1st until November 4th, 1918, when at the usual hour, the schools of Daytona Beach, and Seabreeze opened attendance reports that were much better than expected, according to the Daytona Morning Journal. And then it went on to say studies in various school departments are being resumed with vigor, and every effort is being made to make up for the time lost during the 3 weeks enforced holiday. And so it made me think, sound familiar? It's exactly what we're going through. However, the mission is the same, because 100 years later, we are still educating those students in that community. And it's because of our teachers and our staff and those that are dedicated to the mission, regardless of what's going on in the environment. So I just wanted to share that. That was enlightening to me, and I will never see Enterprise the same. And I will say that it needs to be replaced, but just throwing that in there. Established in 1888.
That school was not built in 1888. Stop it. Mr. Persis, go ahead.
Well, Ormond Beach Elementary School had their 100th year anniversary in 1917. So that means, I guess, it opened up in 2017. So I guess it opened up in 1917. So I guess the people there went through the Spanish flu too, Ruben. I don't know. And I think Port Orange Elementary was right around that same time too. Anyway, I just want to thank again, thank Ruben and Jamie for being able to go to Audubon Park, and I want to thank Steve for arranging everything. I Miss Wright and Miss Cuthbert, I can't wait for you all to go out there too, and I wish we could just take a caravan of buses and get everybody out there to see it. But we got to think about what was the principal's name? Trevor Honorhan, I think is his name, the principal at Audubon Park. So I hope someone is going to be telling him that he has to give a few more chores. But he seems like a great guy, and I'm sure he will do it. And if you all could possibly have those tours completed before May 12th, that would be awesome. But I understand everyone's schedule is kind of crazy. The other thing, just as you said so well, Madam Chair, about the Holly Hill School, and the fact that it isn't so much the K-8 of Holly Hill as it was finding a K-8 that fit on a 13-acre site or even smaller. And it just so happened that Audubon Park was only an hour away from here. Could have been like the closest one was 4 hours away. I think we're pretty fortunate that we found one so close by. But but anyway, that's what I wanted. I wanted to say. I'm excited about this project. I know um, uh, Ruben's excited about Deltona Middle finally getting started, and I know Jamie's excited with George Marks and all those great things. And Miss Cuthbert has her, Chisholm Elementary School down there, and so Miss Wright and I, we're happy that West Side has a little addition going on, and they're all thrilled. But golly, we haven't had a new school up here. I don't know. I don't know when the last time was there was a school in the northeast part of the county. It's been quite a while, and certainly it's been a long time since anything's been built on the beach side. So it is exciting, and I just hope we don't. First of all, I just want to say I am very happy that we're taking the time to make sure the Osceola parents, the Ortona parents, have every opportunity for input and to gain some kind of an understanding of what a K-8 school can offer, what it is, what it isn't, and perhaps even more if we decide to go that route, to go a K-8 regardless of where. That we would give them input, give them the opportunity for input on the types of things that they would want. Because I think, to Jamie's point, I think we do have to kind of start over on the design if in fact we're going to build that K-8. Because that K-8 at Audubon Park, you just can't lift it up and place it on the Ortona site. That would not work. And you couldn't take it and place it on the Osceola site, the exact way it's laid out there. That would not work. So it's gonna take some creativity on the part of our architects. But I think based on their expressions walking around that school, I think they were up for the challenge. I think they want to show that they can do it too. So those are my comments. Thank you. And you know what? This meeting is probably be over by 7:30, which would be what 4 hours. That's 2 hours shorter than the last one. And that's a good thing, right? Okay. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome, Ms. Cuthbert.
Well, I hope that one day Spruce Creek High School auditorium looks just like the Seabreeze auditorium.
Yeah.
Just want to say,
Yeah.
I think
They have a real nice media center.
Oh, that's for sure. Then that was built a long time ago. It seems as though in times of in challenging times, I don't think heroes are born, heroes are revealed. They were always heroes, but now we have data. And I just want to state that usually in a school schedule, everything is already just set out. Everything is already planned, and to have everything upended and to completely change. Look at the largest employment system and the largest clientele that we have, and everything is working within a matter of weeks. And that doesn't happen in a single night. It doesn't happen alone. It takes a lot of people, a lot of teams, a lot of collaboration and working together, a lot of give and take to make it work. So I want to say hello and congratulate all of those unsung heroes. And I think everybody is. I mean, between our maintenance workers and our bus drivers, our nurses who are going to be celebrated in a couple of weeks as well as our teachers and the paras who are helping a lot of the students out a lot, and administrations who make sure everything is orchestrated. So it's so nice to be able to celebrate our heroes. I do want to ask, I know usually around this time of year we have a board workshop or two on the budget. So I'd just like to know what's how that's going along? It's probably because we don't know what the budget's going to be.
No,
Because aren't they going back into another session?
no, it's not that, and we are waiting on that. But due to virtual, they've asked us to make sure that we have meetings. So we probably would do an emergency meeting or a special meeting for the budget rather than having a workshop. But we are waiting. And that will probably be actually separate because we'll probably need more time. And if we do have a special meeting, it will be for that purpose only.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and when Mrs. Albert was asking about and you answered her about the facility of Holly Hill, I was just addressing the other part of her comment, which is, yes, let's look at how they've arranged their curriculum and how they separate, how their schedule works. It would be nice.
Oh, yeah.
To have their support. Yeah.
I agree. And my thing was, it was never to slight Holly Hill, nor did we did not think about Holly Hill. It was for the sole purpose of space. We were looking at acreage and square footage, and could we find a school with the same type of acreage and a footprint that could potentially fit on either of those school sites?
Yeah, and I don't know if all of my colleagues here have been tuning into the Florida School Board Association conferences every Friday morning. They have been extremely, extremely beneficial. Last Friday's was very eye-opening about us making sure our contracts are worded correctly. And I love the difference between hazard and emergency, two completely different concepts. And that's always something we need to be cognizant of, because everything is not as it seems right now. And we too have had our jobs upended. So we're on a whole nother mission as well. But it was nice to see everybody. It really was. I miss all of you. Happy May Day, and may the 4th be with you. All right, so take care, everybody. Thank you.
Mr. Doran?
Nothing for me, Chairman Wright. Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, he's here with us. That's great. Nice to hear your voice.
He hasn't said a word.
Yeah, well, you're not going to see a picture either because I haven't had a haircut in 3 months, it seems. Maybe I'm sure it's less than that. But
Elvis. All right, Elvis.
I'm to be heard only, not seen.
You're growing the beard so that you can go to Montana and look like a real rugged cattleman.
I'm in Montana and I'm stuck here. There are no flights home, not even through May 30th. That's not to say they won't create flights at some point, but right as I sit here, I cannot leave.
Oh, okay. Well, we're sorry. Well, that may not be true, but enjoy Montana.
Yeah, thank you.
Superintendent Fritz.
Nothing, ma'am. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, colleagues, for joining us this evening. Unlike Mr. Persis, we're going to get out in 4 hours, and thank you for your time. We had a lot to discuss. As soon as we find out some information about the budget, Superintendent Fritz and I will have some discussion so that we can have a special call meeting, and it will address the budget. And hopefully we will learn some details about that sooner than later. I really don't have anything to say other than we are appreciative of each of you as I started out the meeting today. And take care, be safe, and until we meet again, have a great week.
You do the same, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Bye-bye.